Okay, it is 4 o'clock, and I will call to order the Salina City Commission regular meeting for January 26, 2026. I would first look to staff for confirmation that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, may we have roll call?
Mayor Hoppick.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Ivy.
Here.
Commissioner Linkowitz. Commissioner Remp.
Here.
And Mr. Linkowitz just texted me that he's on his way. He's running a couple minutes late. With that, those who are able, please stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have no public hearings or items scheduled for a certain time.
Mayor Hoppick. Is this on? Yeah. Mayor Hoppick, I move to amend today's agenda to add resolution number 26-8325, recognizing and honoring Greg Bengtson for his 4 decades of dedicated and distinguished service as City Attorney for the City of Salina. This would take place before the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to read resolution number 268325. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. With that being said, Mr. Bengtson, could you come up here with me, please? Mr. Bengtson thinks he knows what's going on. Guess what? Not everything. It's always nice to have a little surprise. We have a resolution number 26-8325, which is a resolution recognizing and honoring Greg A. Bengtson for his 4 decades of dedicated and distinguished service as City Attorney for the City of Salina. Whereas, since January 1, 1986, Greg A. Bengtson has faithfully served the City of Salina as City Attorney, providing exceptional legal guidance, sound judgment, and unwavering commitment to the public good. And whereas throughout his tenure, Greg A. Bengtson has been instrumental in navigating complex legal issues, supporting major community initiatives, and ensuring the City of Salina upheld the highest standards of transparency, fairness, and lawful governance. And whereas Greg A. Bengtson's counsel has been vital to the City Commission and City staff over the years, each of whom benefited from his vast knowledge, steady leadership, and thoughtful approach to public service. And whereas Greg A. Bengtson has consistently demonstrated integrity, professionalism, and dedication to the people of Salina, earning the respect and gratitude of colleagues, elected officials, and community members alike. And whereas the City Commission wishes to express its sincere appreciation for Greg A. Bengtson's countless contributions and to formally recognize his service. So now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing body of the City of Salina, Kansas, Section 1, the City of Salina hereby honors and commends Greg A. Bengtson for his extraordinary 40 years of service as City Attorney. Section 2, the City offers its deepest gratitude and heartfelt best wishes for fulfillment, health, and happiness in the years ahead. Section 3, that the City Clerk is hereby directed to have this resolution delivered to Greg A. Bengtson, adopted by the Board of Commissioners and signed by the Mayor this 26th day of January 2026. Greg is well respected throughout the state of Kansas for his knowledge and dedication to Salina and to the municipality. I know how reassuring it is, and Dr. Davis and I talked about this earlier, when sometimes the commission might be going down a path we're not sure we should be going. It's always reassuring to be able to look over there and know that Mr. Bengtson gives us a nod, yay or nay, and takes over from there. So that's always, he's always been a wonderful resource for all of us. And this isn't all. There will be a reception honoring Mr. Bengtson's 40 years of service Friday, January 30th at 2 o'clock at the Great Plains Manufacturing Hall, located at the Tony's Pizza Event Center. And Bengtson, we do have the resolution and a plaque here that we would like to present to you, to put on your wall so you'll remember all the fun times we had together. And sometimes not so fun times, but it was always, we've moved the city forward in 40 years. We've made a lot of progress as a community, and a lot of that is due to your leadership, along with the numerous city managers and staff that you've worked with. I guess we need to approve this resolution. It probably would be a good idea. Could I have a motion to approve this?
I move we approve the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was good. You got 5. Congratulations, and thank you very much for your 40 years.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You're not done yet, so if I look over your direction, don't ignore me, please, okay? Okay, that will move us to the consent agenda.
Item 4.1, consider approval of the minutes of the January 12th, 2026 regular meeting. Item 4.2, consider approval of resolution number 26-8329, appointing a member to the Salina Community Economic Development Organization. Item 4.3, announce the mayor's appointments of city commissioners to various boards, commissions, and committees. And item 4.4, consider authorizing an ambulance remount by Emergency Services Supply and purchase of a new EMS cot from Stryker Medical in an amount not to exceed $255,900.44.
Okay, thank you. Is there an item a commissioner would like to have removed from consent agenda? Okay, if not. Is there an item someone from the public would like to comment on? Okay, before I bring this back for a vote, I would like to let everyone know that as a city commissioner, not only do we attend these meetings, but we'll also attend other board meetings. And so I was just going to let everyone know that Commissioner Davis will be attending the Salina Housing Authority and also the Salina County Building Authority. Commissioner Ivy will attend the Convention and Tourism Committee at the Salina Community Economic Development Organization meetings. Commissioner Linkowitz will attend the North Central Regional Planning Commission, Arts and Humanities Commission, and Salina County Building Authority. And Commissioner Remp will attend the Salina Airport Authority and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And myself, I will be attending the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce and the Library Board. So I thought it'd be good that everyone knows that we do have other activities outside of this room. So with that, I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor Hoppeck, I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda as published. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes 5-0. That will lead us to administration.
5.1, consider authorizing the city manager to execute a contract for services with Keene Independent Research Incorporated for strategic and cultural planning services in the amount of $54,901.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Brad Anderson, Executive Director of Arts and Humanities. Today, it's an exciting time to talk about the future of the community, and when I think of all of the city employees and services, I think Mr. Bengtson may be the only one who has been here for all of the cultural planning that the city has done. But today, at the city manager's reminder about how much has transpired prior to your watch, to hit a few highlights of what the previous plan did. So as you're aware, I'm asking for support for a cultural assessment and strategic plan for our city. I'm going to be reviewing the details of that plan here in just a few minutes. But the last cultural plan adopted in 2009, quite a bit has happened, and just to hit a few of those items was important. In the opening pages of that, before the goals, before the objectives, there was a statement written by the plan's author that said, as in the case with other communities in the country, there's been a long-held perception in Salina that the arts exist only for a select segment of the population. Underscoring this perception was a discovery that only 52% of Salinans think the arts are important. Now, on first blush, you might go, yeah, that sounds about right, about half. However, the national average in the year that survey was done in the affirmative of people who just say, yes, I think arts are important to our community, was 96%. We weren't doing well. This is continuing her quote, changing this perception and strengthening the cultural sectors and Salina arts and humanities' ability to do so is the thrust of this plan. Because increased appreciation, participation, and support will then follow. This was a high order. And as those of you who've been longtime Salinans remember, we were taking it on the chin regularly for public art. There were the us and them kinds of arguments. The local paper had an unattributed comment line, a 333 line, that allowed anybody to say anything without a fact check. And it's difficult to box with shadows. And so we had challenges ahead. Well, using the big ideas, community cultural plan as a roadmap to move us through that and to make some improvements in our community had measurable impact. The city invested approximately $40,000 in 2007 and 8 for a year-long planning process that resulted in 4 goals, 17 objectives, and 58 strategies. And over the last 18 years, many of those strategies are still in place, still being updated, and have made a positive difference. A couple of highlights. And one of the objectives, it says, help arts, culture, and heritage sector improve its reach across the community. Well, one of the first things that happened after that you're well aware of is the Cultural Arts Regional Marketing Program. And through regional marketing of our cultural offerings, places like the Stiefel Theater can boast 72% of its ticket sales coming from outside of Saline County. The community theater is hovering between 38 and the low 40% in theirs. The symphony has a substantial number of out-of-county visitors. That's in part to one of the specific goals that was listed in the big ideas. Another objective says, see that arts and information about arts, culture, and heritage regularly reaches Salinans. Since 2009, we've done a print newsletter, an e-newsletter, a bi-weekly newsletter, a print calendar in the paper, multiple different iterations. Now, Salina Arts and Entertainment is the primary single source for all of our cultural sector to be able to feed information to, so citizens, regardless of what their interests are, have one place that they can go and see what's happening in the cultural arts, as long as all of the cultural partners partner with that. That's been important in terms of accessibility and transparency and an ease of access for users. Goal 2, back to the public art section, was make our community a more beautiful place in which to live, work, and visit. Since 2009, there are more than 100 new works of art in parks, public rights-of-way, and inside public buildings since the plan was adopted. Another one of the sub-goals or objectives, widely promote beautification stories to increase understanding, appreciation, and improve community involvement and support. Well, we did a number of things as an office, and we've been a beneficiary of other public programming or private programming that the public benefited. But one of the first things we did after the plan was adopted was to do a community awareness guide and a history of why art and design in our community is important. We distributed 4,000 of those throughout the community and in doctor's offices and waiting rooms and in public speaking venues and in direct mail, and got awareness out about that. We also created a less expensive, smaller brochure besides the 18-page book that was produced. Multiple public speaking things happened at civic clubs and organizations, anybody who'd hear us, that we went out and shared stories about art, about its impact, about public art, about why arts and culture are important to a community. We also, in conjunction with that of involving the public, this was in about 2018, 17 right now is, I don't remember the exact year. We added to the public art policy that you all approved in 2009. And in that public art policy, we now have a secondary part that says if you're a private citizen and want to do art in public spaces, we've got guidelines to help you do that and to help streamline that process, and our staff helps with that. That's had a positive difference on things like sculpture tour or a private donor who wants to donate a piece to the sculpture or to the soccer complex, or for Bill Graves and his wife Linda, who wanted to donate a piece that ended up at Lakewood Park. That policy update was helped guided by the big ideas. Towards the end here, make Salina a place where arts, culture, and heritage providers work together and thrive. Another sub-goal, make Salina a place where artists can live and work successfully. There's welding programs at Salina Tech and Central that have made art in recent years. There's students creating art in new public spaces. Local businesses have underwritten donations for work at the soccer complex. The USD 305 designated $120,000 in their last bond issue in 2014 to have art integrated in their schools because they felt that was an important part of the overall construction budget. Our office helped manage that through the trust that we'd been able to build with USD 305. The garage has integrated art. Besides the automobile museum on the inside, they're putting art outside and within the building, and crossing over the temple is a new space for artists to be able to both create and for them to be able to host sculpture and other art both inside their facility and outside. The Friends of the River has an education program that involves creativity, the puppets in education and environmental awareness, but has utilized arts services through Arts and Humanities to gain the professional knowledge they need. Their Theater Salina opened a black box theater to reach new audiences and try new and experimental things. And so by spreading the breadth and the opportunities for creativity to thrive in Salina by the guidelines that were there, Salina is a much better place now than it was in 2009. There's another element of the plan that talked about artists and arts organizations needed to bridge gaps with our business and professional community. There are some small things that we do each year that we think have a positive impact. Some of our publication and some of our education and awareness that we do, we share with human resource directors at manufacturing plants or the hospital or elsewhere who are trying to recruit professionals to the community by being able to give them a snapshot of what Salina performs like, is helpful in making our city more attractive. You know, I believe the CEO of Pure Imagination commented at their announcement that one of the factors that helped lead them to decide to come to Salina was because of the breadth of creativity that's here that helps feed their staff. So there is those are just a few highlights of what's happened since then. Of all 58 of those strategies, other than buying group insurance before Obamacare was, or the medical care plan came about, we dropped that because those needs weren't the same as what they were there. So we've kept this plan alive, we've kept it active, but it's time for change. So getting in to your blue sheet, we've done 2 cultural plans, one in the early 90s and this latest one in 2009. Salina Arts and Humanities has been around this year. We're celebrating our 60th year. The Smoky Hill River Festival has been around for 50 years, and the Smoky Hill Museum is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. In order to help position ourselves for looking forward to the future and being able to adapt to the changes that have taken place in our community, we think it's a good time to consider strategic planning. A call for proposals was put out in November. We sent this call out. We filed it through the city clerk's office, but we also sent it directly to 38 different known agencies who did cultural planning from across the country. We had 5 qualified bids submitted, 5 bids total. Each one was qualified. The estimated budgets from those bids ranged from $49,910 to $71,140, and some had some additional service costs that went with that made some amounts higher in that range, but that was the overall range. We invited 7 staff and community members to evaluate those bid proposals when they came in. The panelists included 3 cultural directors, a business professional with economic development experience, a public school educator, 1 arts and humanities staff member, wasn't me, and the chair of the Arts and Humanities Commission, who's a retired contractor. The proposals were evaluated in a variety of areas, including the level of professional presentation, the methodology they used for the outlined scope of work, a demonstrated ability to complete the work on time, and on budget, by the way, the qualifications of their staff and their research staff to be able to do a competent job, their ability to engage with local and rural residents. We wanted someone who was relational and could relate to our citizens well. In the last plan, we had 1,100 surveys completed by local and area citizens, and a steering committee of 71 people. It was a highly involved and engaged process. We're probably not going to have a 70-member steering committee this time, but we do plan on engaging the public. From those qualifications, the recommendation was for keen independent research. A little short aside for the 7 people that I mentioned that were on the selection panel. They did a numerical scoring, but then we also, in the conversation of what are the pros and cons, what did their proposals look like, what's the best fit for Salina, Kansas, all 7 had keen independent research as their number 1 choice, both numerically and kind of from their heart and observation of who they were going to recommend to me and for us to take to the Arts Commission. We checked references and found positive results from communities. I called a couple of communities who had either a similar number of cultural arts agencies and or a size that was comparable to Salina to know that it wasn't someone who wouldn't know how to engage at the level that we're working here. Those references were very positive. They each one said they would hire them again if they were given the choice, and that they did as they proposed in their original plan, and they all finished on time and on budget. A tentative timeline for accomplishing the tasks are included in your full packet. It's about a year-long process. A few months of discovery and of assessment of our cultural assets, a few months of surveying our citizens, engaging in small group, meeting with cultural directors and with citizens, and as they both conduct their research and do some findings. Our hope is that they're far enough along that instead of doing a State of the Arts next October, Keene will present to you a preliminary findings and a direction of where that plan is going for you to provide feedback in October, and then the last 2 to 3 months of the preparation is finalizing it, putting in an implementation strategy, and getting it ready for a formal presentation to you next December or January. In terms of, key components of the plan, I've kind of highlighted those. I'll just mention 4 specific areas: provide a clear and strategic vision for the future. This will be one that is designed to support economic development and further expansion of our community, not just artistic expansion, but to dovetail with our economic development efforts. They've already asked us or provided a list in their proposal for many of the strategic planning and other documents that exist, and our housing study and other things, to let them know what's happening, where is the momentum in the community. And so they're not going to be working in a bubble. They're going to be working with all of the agencies, groups, and government work that has been taking place to get Salina to where it is today. We're going to let them assess, without our interference, what the community says about us, about our services, about opportunities that both are doing well, but others that need help. And then to also take a look at the existing resources that we have and not have a pie-in-the-sky plan that can't be implemented, but one that uses the available resources that we have, and then also gives us a fair warning of where some additional needs might be in the future. On a fiscal note, the total amount that's on the budget is about $10,000 more than what the contract amount that we approved was. And I want to take just a quick second and explain to you why that occurred. After comparing all of the plans and looking at the projected costs, most of the other organizations had a similar number of visits to our community. At the time that we negotiated this contract with them, I felt it was important that they are spending a little bit of time at the conclusion and presentation of the plan in person with you and with our cultural leaders and or community members when it comes time to present and accept the final plan. And there's an extra cost associated with that. We would have incurred that cost with any one of the organizations, but in this case, we are asking for an amount higher to cover those anticipated costs if we're at full budget at the time that we want to bring them back for an extra visit. And then from the base amount of the contract, the $49,910, there's also a 10% contingency for just those extra expenses that might occur in the course of a year, whether it's providing printing costs for getting surveys out or for advertising, marketing, or promoting some of the community engagement activities, having refreshments at a place or paying the rent for a facility to bring the public in for a listening session, whatever those are, we wanted you to be aware that that we wanted to have those covered and not have to come back to you. Lastly, and it was something I appreciated from Mr. Keene, when we talked, I said we have the ability through some of the services and support we receive from the community, like some vouchers for meals at local restaurants, some hotel rooms that are either significantly discounted or free through the River Festival. And if we're able to provide some of those to meet their accommodations and needs and assist with lowering their costs, we'll see that lower cost in their monthly billing. So it gives us an opportunity to maybe save a little bit along the way with the support we're already receiving from the community. So with that, you have 4 action items before you. One is to approve the motion authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for professional services with Keene Independent Research for strategic and cultural planning services in the amount of $49,910 with a $9,991 contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $59,901. You can also approve the motion with amendments. You can postpone it and give me or staff direction on additional information that you require to make a decision, or you can take no action or deny the request, and we will not pursue a cultural plan at this time. Alex Keene, the principal of Keene Independent Research, is on the Zoom call today from Arizona. And I might, with your patience, see if there's anything that Alex would like to add before I stand for questions.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon. It's great to meet all of you virtually. Brad, I think you covered it all, but I'll just say we're very excited to get started. We do this work all over the country, and it's we take it very seriously. These are one of the things, Brad, that you said that I really appreciated was some of your local business leaders really pointing to the creative economy as something that attracts them to Salina. And that's a great example of something we really focus on, is not only how arts and culture improves a community from a quality of life aspect, but we also think about it from an economic driver, and that's something we're going to really look at. So we're just really happy and honored to be chosen and selected, and looking forward to getting started if the commission moves forward.
Thank you, Alex. So I'll stand for questions.
Okay, any questions from the commission? I'll start to my right.
Nope.
I have comments, I have questions. All right, well,
Comments or questions, either one.
Brad, known each other for a long time.
Yep.
And I know you to be a very competent guy. Myself and others in the community feel that we hire outside consulting firms too often. I know Salina has had more than its fair share of pioneers in the past. I know we got pioneers currently. I know we have a lot of people with vision in the community. It seems like a group could be got together from the community and do a lot of the things that a consulting group would come in and do. As a matter of fact, I think if you wanted to in the future, you could be one of those consultants helping other communities because of your vast knowledge. I know your department has a budget of over 1.2 million and salaries of $500,000, and I just don't think we need to bring in a consulting group we've covered a lot of positive ground without question, but I think there's enough talent contained within the community where an outside consulting group is not needed to be brought in.
If you have some other questions, it might be easiest for me to address those one-on-one. I have a great pride in Salina and its capacity, and don't disagree that we have a strong brain trust here. What I would have loved to have seen is one champion or one organizer to say, we've got you. We have this skill and experience and can do so. But when we put out the call for proposals, none were received. And with myself and our staff's workload, to be able to competently manage a year-long visioning process and try to have conversations like I had with you today, but to bring a fresh perspective and one that doesn't seem self-serving would be really hard. And I was on the first cultural planning committee that we did in '92. It took 8 months to do a request for proposals, and as a 20 or 32-year-old or whatever I was back then, it was driving me crazy. I said, why do we have to do this? Can't we just, hire from within, or we know what we need, let's go get it done. What we received, and especially with the big ideas, how the bars that were set and the vision that was cast was more than I would have had. I was on that steering committee with 71 people. None of us would have been able to bring the same vision and sense of possibility that came through that last plan. And in addition, the research part, having qualified researchers so that the data that's produced is data we can trust, that's a specialized skill that, again, our office and Kansas Wesleyan's University psychology department and others aren't capable of providing. So we've, if there was that possibility, we would do so. But the in-state company, Wichita State University, that submitted a proposal was going to be about $8,000 more. And that was our closest, and they've done a lot of work for Salina, but we didn't feel like, for the quality of the product and staying closer to home, that it was worth that investment. So I hope that provides a little bit of context.
It helps.
Were there other questions that you had about?
No, those were my thoughts.
I guess in closing, what I'd say is that your investment in this is one that myself, our staff, our arts commissioners who are here are not taken for granted. We all hear about consultants and reports that end up on a shelf and they gather dust, and we would have been better without it. That isn't the case. Between Sculpture Tour, Boom, the Garage, an upcoming river project, and major economic development that's happened in our community that's far surpassed what any of us had thought was possible even 8 years ago, we're going to put this to work. Whatever those findings are, we're going to own it. We're going to report back to you regularly, and you're going to know that you've made a good investment in the future of Salina and its cultural arts. And by the way, it's not just the city's plan. You're doing this on behalf of both the citizens, every church choir, and all of the other cultural organizations in town. So, thank you.
And to follow up on Commissioner Rimp's comments, I do agree there's sometimes that we have outside consultants come in and we do studies and they really don't go anywhere. I must admit, from being involved in the community, and this study, or the Big Ideas, is 18 years old, that from being around, you hear the word "the big ideas" being used quite a bit over time. So it has been a roadmap that we have followed. I think sometimes bringing in an outside consultant gives you a fresh perspective on what you are doing right and doing wrong. Spending this kind of money every 18 to 20 years, I don't really see as being a big deal. So, and it's something that over the last 18 years has been positive for the community. So,
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, I will open it up to the public if anyone has a comment, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Ben Winhill, Salina. A quick search found out that Arts and Humanities has 7 employees on staff. That's where you get your $500,000 for their budget for staff wages. They have a $1.2 million budget. We found out a year ago when the state of Kansas was looking for ways to cut things that they only had a $1 million budget for the whole state of Kansas. That included every community in there to be able to use these funds. And yet we have $1.2 million for a community of 47,000. Go figure. Now, with 7 employees on staff, I would think that at least 1 or 2 of these employees could do this job and save us taxpayers $55,000.
Thank you.
Tony Johnson, Salina. I just want to echo what Commissioner Remp said, and Ben, I think a 7-figure budget and 7 full-time staff members, Arts and Humanities Commission, Community Art and Design Commission, and a foundation. Surely they could pull from that group of community members and they would have their finger on the pulse of what's needed here. But I find it ironic that we had an iconic local restaurant want to put a little culture on the side of his building, and City Hall rushed down there with big sticks. So, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if not, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
I got it right here.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I was all the way in the back.
And please give your, I'm sorry, give your name and where you're from, if you would.
I'm Becky Norlin, and I'm just from right here. Do I need to say my address?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
All right. I came here today with obviously some thoughts about some local happenings on the Facebooks and the comments. I represent a group called the Committed Kansas Activists. We are peaceful. We show up in our community with signs, music, support, not violence. And yet, while standing for our values, we have been met with Nazi salutes,
Ms. Norlin.
slurs, including...
Is this going to be dealing with this? Are your comments dealing with this item?
No, I thought they were just the ending.
No, we're right now dealing with this item.
Okay, well, good. I'll just
that
save
will
this.
be, if you have comments to make, that'd be under citizens forum.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, that'll be the last, right? Sorry.
Towards the end, yes.
Okay, sorry.
That's right. Thank you.
You were asking for... I didn't want to miss this one.
Yes.
Squeaky boot.
Douglas Bailey from Salina for the past 3 years. Recently moved here after living in several big cities, Washington, D.C., Seattle. Anyway, one of the reasons I was attracted to come back to Salina, my wife's hometown, is because of the strength of the arts community here. Everywhere you go in this town, you feel it, and it makes a very positive influence on people who are looking at the town, visiting the town, and a lot of that has to do with the strength of the cultural planning that's been done here. The sorts of strength in the artistic community we have does not happen by accident, and the kind of plan that Brad put forward that we hope to produce to go forward in the future is exactly the kind of plan that continue keeping us on that sort of momentum to make Salina the sort of place that people and businesses want to be in. So I would strongly speak and behave in behalf of supporting this proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Okay. Anyone else?
Just had
Okay,
a
if not,
comment, but not.
Okay.
Sorry.
yes, come on. I'm sorry.
I wasn't going to, but as his partner, part of the explanation.
Can
of
you
that-
please give us
sorry.
your name and where?
Salina, or Carol Bailey, former Carol Norton from Salina. Grew up in Salina, met a man in KU, moved away. Said I'd never come back to Kansas. 3 years ago, after other things happened, we started looking at the community. When I was last here in 2006, when my mother had her last stroke and left, this town was circling the frickin' drain. And we came back here and looked around and went, he was from Hutch. Hutch was circling the drain in 2006. And we came back here, Hutch is still circling the drain, and Salina isn't. And a lot of it has been this type of community and public commitment, but there's been a huge amount of private, such as the garage, commitment into this city. And a lot of that is because of this kind of cultural development. And the one thing wanted to ask, because you talked about a survey that they did when this first happened, and there was around, 50-some%? Have they done another survey since then, after this other cultural? And what was that result?
Thank you.
My new electronic tablet, I missed that in my notes, but yes, we surveyed the public again in 2016 with the exact same question, and that percentage had risen to 88%. So, yeah, we made a substantial improvement in that gap, and we're now very close. Keene has agreed to do that same question again so that we can have another group assess our continuous improvement in that area. So,
thank you. Okay, anyone else? Hey, Commissioner Davis, you had a comment?
Yeah, it's, when you look at our recent economic development, there are two organizations here in town who don't get as much credit for their part in that, and that's Arts and Humanities and Convention and Tourism. These are folks who work behind the scenes, but they're producing the very thing that attracts people to Salina, attracts businesses to Salina. When our kids see what's going on in Salina, say, whoa, okay. And that difference in spending between the state and the city of Salina probably proves the point that you don't get what you don't pay for. And the reason this city is on the move is because we have deemed this important and are spending the money. And maybe the rest of the state will take notice. And if Topeka won't pay for it, each local community will have to pay for its own. This seems like one of those pie-in-the-sky kind of philosophical research efforts here, but it actually provides the nuts and bolts for, a plan for how we're gonna expand our offerings here. And I think getting an outside opinion is good because we're never going to be any smarter than the smartest person that we have at the table, and I mean we, the city. And we're not marketing always to ourselves, but to others. So it's you don't know what you don't know until you research it. We may find out that we're doing everything that we need to be doing and pat ourselves on the back. But a look every 20 years is, for $2,500 a year, that's not a lot to spend.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? If not, I would accept a motion.
Mayor Hoppick, I move to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement for professional services with Keene Independent Research Incorporated for strategic and cultural planning services in the amount of $49,910 with a $9,991 contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $59,901.
Second.
We have a motion and a second authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for professional services with Keene Independent Research, Inc. for strategic and cultural planning services in the amount of $49,910 with a $9,991 contingency for a total not to exceed the amount of $59,901. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
That item passes 4-1. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That will lead us to item 5.2.
Item 5.2, consider approval of resolution number 26-8328, authorizing and providing for various 2026 capital improvement projects in an amount not to exceed $11,200,000.
Ms. Pack.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Debbie Pack, Director of Finance. The 2026 through 2030 Capital Improvement Program, which was approved on November 24th, 2025 by the City Commission, included 5 new projects which were proposed to be funded using debt financing. In order to issue bonds for these projects, once they are complete, the City Commission must approve or pass a resolution authorizing the issuance of debt for these projects. The 5 new projects included in the plan were the Ohio Schilling and intersection improvements, both design and construction, for a total estimated cost of $2,300,000. The East Magnolia Road and Bridge improvements, which would replace the existing bridge and widen the roadway and complete the hike and bike trail along Magnolia up through Markley Road, at a total estimated cost of $7.6 million. Painting of the North Ohio decorative overpass at a cost of $1 million. And runway improvements or repairs at the Berkeley Family Recreation Area at a cost of $300,000. Passing this resolution does not require the city to issue debt for these projects if funding from other sources does become available, but it does give us the authority to do so and the authority to cover the cost that we have if we so choose to finance these through debt. Staff has some 4 options for City Commission. First is to approve the resolution number 26-8328, authorizing providing for these 5 projects and authorizing the issuance of temporary notes and/or general obligation bonds to fund the projects in an amount not to exceed $11,200,000. Approve the resolution with amendments, postpone consideration of the resolution and give staff direction for further consideration, or vote to deny the resolution resulting in these projects being postponed until alternate financing can be determined. I would stand for any questions, and I know there's some department heads here if you have questions on specific projects that are on the list as well.
Any questions?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Ms. Pack, one, the thickness of the concrete at the East Crawford Recreation Area, do we know how thick that concrete is?
That's why we brought Mr. Marshall on.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ron Marsh, Director of Public Works. No, Commissioner, we don't know the exact thickness. They're estimating 10 to 12 inches.
Well, seeing that it's an old runway, I guess it probably is 10 to 12 inches, and I know there's been times around town where they have done the micro surfacing. I'm not sure what UBAS is. Is that a form of micro surfacing?
No, Commissioner, it's yes it is, but that's not the process that we'll use. Actually, we would use a 2-inch mill and overlay, asphalt mill and overlay on those.
Well, yeah, here it says, I guess milling 1/2 inch to 1 inch, so it would be overlaid thicker. I worry if it was only 1/2 inch to 1 inch thick, it would, it probably wouldn't be there that long, but.
No, Commissioner, we're going to mill it down 2 inches and then replace it with asphalt. We've changed it after looking at it. Our engineers have changed how they feel that they can do more for less by putting the 2-inch mill and overlay.
Okay, and I assume we have a diagram somewhere that shows the part that would be milled, or is the perimeter all the way around, or?
It's about 1,160 feet on each side, so
okay.
What's that going to be, 2320?
Alrighty, another question I have on another area, and I talked to Mr. Wood about this a little bit earlier, but the North Ohio overpass painting may or may not be your department. And it might be my personal opinion, never been a fan of the color that is currently there, but I have seen structures in different communities and some right here in the state in western Johnson County where the bridges seemingly are just left to rust. Like that's the look. They don't have any paint on them. Have you seen any of those by chance?
No, I have not.
When I was picking the city manager's brain earlier, and I didn't expect him to know, but those structures exist, and I was wondering if it's a different type of metal, or it would take 100 years for it to deteriorate, or it seems right now, if we were going to spend $1 million, and it seems like a lot of money, I assume we'd be looking at a different color anyway.
I'll try to give you the best answer that I can, Commissioner. One, the color's completely up to the City Commission. If you want to change it, you guys have the power to do that. Number two, for aesthetic purposes, that paint is good for 10 to 15 years. Structurally, it's good for, they estimate 15 to 20 years. That bridge has been there 20 years, to my knowledge, roughly. So it's time to repaint, and that paint helps keep the structural integrity, not to mention the aesthetics, but the structural integrity of the metal, especially the decorative metal. Now, not the supporting metal, but the decorative metal. That $1 million is hopefully a worst case scenario. Back in June, July of 2024, the city, one of the engineers at the time got some bids, and it was between $650,000 to $1 million, depending on what they had to do to get the paint off. If they could just pressure wash it, it was going to be less money. If they had to go in and hand strip it because of rusting and treat rusting spots that were rusted and fix those, it was going to be more money. So that we estimate it to be between $500,000 and $1 million right now.
Okay.
So to follow up on that, we'll do RFPs, and then you'll come back. This is not guaranteeing this happens, so you'll come back, and at that point, we'll have to approve yay or nay the amount and what's being done, correct?
Correct. We'll do an RFP and bring it back to the commission for
This
approval.
is just authorizing you to go out and do your...
Start the process.
Start the process.
Yep.
Okay.
And I do have a question on the Berkeley family. So we're not doing anything with the runway. We're just doing the apron. Is that like 6 foot wide apron? I can't remember. But I know it is deteriorating.
I can look it up. I want to say it's 6 to 10 feet apron.
And so I'm guessing the apron is not as thick as the actual runway, and that's why we have deterioration.
Correct. It's not going to be as thick. We estimate 10 to 12 inches just because that's what we've run into, or our crews have run into in the past. But the 2-inch will get us down, should clear up the worst of the scouring that you see on there and the potholes. And then by doing the 2-inch mill and overlay versus say the UBAS or a micro surfacing, it's easier for our crews to go in and repair if they need to repair it in the future.
So is that from Dean Evans Stadium south?
South, yes.
And not go. So that's where the dog park is and all that. So
Correct.
We're not going to the north.
Where they hold the drag races.
What's that? Where the drag? Okay.
Because the cars use that apron as a return chute.
I did have a question pertaining to the Ohio Schilling intersection design. Is that going to include, because I notice it says roundabout design, is it going to include also standard traffic signal design so we can kind of compare and contrast?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now we're in fact 2 weeks before you will be the phase 1 design agreement for that intersection, as well as the East Magnolia and Smoky Hill River Bridge phase 1 design agreement. And part of that is a traffic study to determine what the best solution for that intersection is, whether it be a 4-way stop, a signal, or a roundabout.
All right, thank you.
Okay, because that's a little deceiving. It talks about the roundabout and I don't know even if you put stoplights in there if you have to do any land acquisition or not. But I just wanted to make sure that we're looking at at all?
Yes, we'll look at
Okay.
all possibilities.
Okay.
And just to be clear, this action actually authorizes us to debt finance these projects in the future. So all these projects will be managed. We'll have design engineering contracts that come back. There'll be lots more information and action items for the city commission. This is just the first step. If we're going to debt finance it in the future, it has to be authorized for us to do that. So we've actually already started down the path on several of these projects. As Ron said, we'll have those design engineering contracts before you probably in the next couple of months. We'll have more details about the specifics of the projects and how that breaks down at that time.
Any questions or comments to my right?
Now, well, all of mine actually be more appropriate when the project actually comes before us, yeah.
Okay. Any other? All right. Is there any comment from the public that they would like to make on this?
Tony Johnson, Salina. I think what you're referring to, Commissioner Rimp, is I've heard it called weathered steel, where like the outside layer is like a sacrificial, it corrodes over and seals it off and then protects what's underneath, and for what it's worth. But anyway, I just had a question. I got a public school education from Missouri, but I can do a little figuring. 2022, the city got a $22 million grant from the USDOT on a river project. And we were told that was going to be used for 7 bridges, 3.5 miles of trails, 7 pedestrian crossings, 3 railroad pedestrian crossings, and trail lighting. So why is this bridge $7.6 million? Because both of these can't be true at the same time. Because there's no way you're building 7 bridges for $22 million, from what I know. Secondly, we want to embrace this river life. I don't know how narrow this bridge is on Crawford. I know I meet other tractor trailers on it all day during the summer hauling rock back into town, and hell, we're 102 inches wide, so I don't know, but a lot of river towns have narrow bridges. My home state had a real narrow one in Louisiana, Missouri, and Booneville, and then I don't know if any of you been across the US 60 bridge over the Ohio River in southern Illinois and Kentucky and Missouri there, but I'm just curious how this bridge is going to be almost a third of what we're planning to spend on 7 for the river project. Like I said, both of these things can't be true at the same time. So,
Mr. John, you said Crawford. You meant Magnolia.
Magnolia.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Thank you. And I'll let staff kind of answer that.
So,
I know that.
I do have an answer for that. So the improvements for this project for East Magnolia will be everything from, it'll go all the way from where there's concrete now all the way to Markley. So it's a lot more than just a bridge. And then the river project is $22 million is what we're getting from the federal government, but there is a local share in that. That's about a $37 million project total. So it's quite a bit more expensive than just the $22 million.
And the other thing I'll ask staff on the East Magnolia Road and Bridge is also we're widening that, but we're also adding a bike hike trail that
yes, it'll be a
adds to
10-foot
that.
hike and bike trail.
We're trying to connect.
Yeah,
Magnolia area
it'll go
to-
all the way to the intersection.
Right.
We'll look at the intersection at Markley and Magnolia, and then connect the trail that goes along Markley as well.
Thank you. Yes.
Norman Island, Salina. There's 2 methods of measuring this concrete. You can use ground penetrating radar, or you can X-ray it. It will be exactly tell you what the thickness is down to 1,000th. You can X-ray it. You can use ground penetrating radar. It's been done.
Thank you.
Ben Winnell, Salina. Now I am real, as other taxpayers probably are watching the show, I am really confused now. Jacob, you just said 37 million. These are in grants that we have got for the River Renewal Project? Or?
So we have a $22 million federal grant that came in.
That's KDOT.
It's the Department of Transportation.
Right.
It's the federal government. So
Okay.
that's $22 million. There's a matching share that goes with that project. So the city said when we passed the sales tax in 2016 that we would take $17 million of that sales tax and put it towards the river project. Some of that part there's actually 2 projects with the river. So the two projects we're talking about are the Raise Grant project, which replaces the 7 bridges. It also does the trails, it does kind of the beautification stuff. And then there's a Corps of Engineers project, which will actually get the water moving through the channel. There are 2 different projects with 2 different funding sources. So it's a much bigger project than just the $22 million federal Raise Grant is what I was trying to get at. But we have set aside $17 million from the sales tax that was passed in 2016. And then last year, the City Commission also authorized us to set another $5 million in general fund dollars aside for that as well. There's also some outside Friends of the River raising some funds. They're supposed to raise about $4 million that will go towards the project. So there's quite a bit more there than just the $22 million Raise Grant.
And on a side note, you're going to be pulling out another $5 million out of the general fund this year. There's 2 years that you have done that, or will have done that.
No.
Okay, according to accounting, yes, there is $5 million. Another $5 million is pulled out, is in the budget.
One time.
$5 million towards the river project.
One time.
We're not taking, it's not towards the river project.
No.
We may use some money towards the fire station.
Fire
with
station.
General fund dollars.
Yeah.
That could be another $5 million, but not towards the river project.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that, and I got to think this over.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor Hoppick, I move the City Commission approve Resolution Number 26-8328, authorizing and providing for the design and construction of Ohio Schilling intersection improvements, design and construction of East Magnolia road improvements and bridge replacement, North Ohio overpass painting and improvements to the runway of Berkeley Family Recreation Area, and authorizing the issuance of temporary notes and/or general obligation bonds to fund the project in an amount not to exceed $11,200,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 26-8328, authorizing and providing for the design and construction of Ohio Schilling intersection improvements, design and construction of East Magnolia road improvements and bridge replacement, North Ohio overpass painting and improvements to the runway at Berkeley Family Recreation Area, and authorize the issuance of temporary notes and/or general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost thereof. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That item passes 5-0. That will lead us to item 5.3.
Item 5.3, consider authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement for the downtown water treatment plant process and equipment evaluation with Black & Veatch Corporation in an amount not to exceed $305,050.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Schamberg. I started as the Deputy Utilities Director at the beginning of August. Martha Tasker, our Utilities Director, is not able to attend today. She's at a nationwide utilities meeting. But I've worked with her the last couple months, several months over this project. I'm joined today by Mark Peterson, our Utilities Engineer, and John Gilroy with Black & Veatch. Our downtown water treatment facility makes up the heart of our water supply. It treats 20 million gallons a day, up to 20 million gallons a day through a combination of surface water from the Smoky Hill River and groundwater from our downtown well field. The most recent major upgrades on that facility were completed in the early 2000s, so we're about 25 years since we've done a major overhaul of that facility. Over time, the equipment ages, treatment standards evolve and change. This study is intended to provide the city with an updated assessment of the facility, give us an idea of the regulatory posture, understand long-term capital needs so that we can make future investment decisions as accurately and using as current of information as possible. We conducted a qualifications-based selection process for this study. We evaluated proposals from multiple firms. We shortlisted to 3 firms and interviewed those, and the selected firm, Black & Veatch, demonstrated experience with comparable facilities. They understood our system very well, and they had an approach that aligned really well with our project objectives. Those are, the study really includes three main components. A review of our treatment processes and look at the anticipated regulatory requirements. A facility condition assessment that focuses on identifying major processes that might need rehab or replacement. And then development of a capital improvement plan to guide our future budgeting and project development for this facility. This work will be completed over the next several months, and it would result in a formal facility plan that would support our future capital planning, funding discussions, and any kind of regulatory coordination that needs to happen. Options for this action, we could approve a motion authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Black & Veatch Corporation for the downtown water treatment plant process and equipment valuation in an amount not to exceed $305,050. You could approve a motion authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with amendments as you deem appropriate, or you could elect to not sign the agreement. Stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you. And welcome to Salina.
Thank you.
First time we've had you up in front of us. So, any questions or comments? I'll start to my right.
No.
Guess we don't have any water plant experts up here, so.
Anything you tell us sounds good.
Yeah.
We do all like clean water.
I like
right?
clean water.
Like clean water.
Yeah. Any comments or from the public? Okay. With that, I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor Hoppick, I move that the City Commission authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Black & Veatch Corporation for the downtown water treatment plant process and equipment evaluation in an amount not to exceed $305,050.
Second.
We have a motion and a second authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Black & Veatch Corporation for the downtown water treatment plant process and equipment evaluation in the amount not to exceed $305,050. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes 5-0. That will bring us to item 5.4.
Item 5.4, consider approval of resolution number 26-8327, funding a reuse it center in the city of Salina from the solid waste fund.
Okay, Mr. Hennessy.
Commissioners, Sean Hennessy, Deputy City Manager. What you have before you is a resolution for support of a reuse it center. What is envisioned is a reuse it center that will take in items that would be diverted from being put in our landfill and saving some of that additional space from the landfill. We did have a study session on this topic back in December. Went over that in quite a bit of detail. Nevertheless, I'd still like to very briefly go over and give you some background on where some of the potential funding for this support may be if you decide to approve it. So, back in 1998, a resolution was adopted that established a $1 per ton tipping fee. This was basically to be used for diversion purposes from the landfill. However, the money was not set aside, but it was more of a calculation of that funds that were available. At that point in time, that $1 per ton tipping fee was used for venture grants and for several other efforts to divert items from the landfill. However, at the time that we began developing the recycling center as well as the household hazardous waste recycling center, which was funded through a separate mechanism. Those grants were discontinued. Nevertheless, we did continue to calculate that tipping fee as potentially being available. It's just included in the overall amount. The two gentlemen sitting here to my right have started the process of opening a reuse it center, which would benefit our landfill by diverting some of the waste. They've been able to get a facility on North Ohio and are starting the process of opening it to the public. I believe they are already accepting items and selling items online with the anticipation of going live and opening up to the public in general. A little bit more about the funding that is potentially available from the Solid Waste Fund. So you have in the blue sheet a description of the the current status of the solid waste fund. And if you look at it, you'll see both a delineation of some of the costs that the solid waste fund is anticipated to have, as well as an overall operating fund balance and also a capital cost fund. These are basically funds that are available to provide for these costs that are at the landfill. You'll notice that we have currently a healthy fund balance. However, you'll also notice that 2026, there's a large reduction. That is because we have over $4 million in expenditures. $2.7 million is for a new scale house and scale system, and another $1+ million is for one of the scrapers. So the equipment is very expensive when it comes time to purchase it at the landfill. That's why you see rather significant decreases in the overall fund balance. One of the things that we've been looking at is we're going to have to look and almost certainly adjust the amount that is charged per ton, which is currently at $50, in order to make sure that in the future this fund does not go in the red. We've been increasing it at $2 per year, but as that price goes up, a $2 increase as the percentage gets smaller and smaller. So what we're going to have to look at in the future is a percentage increase rather than just a flat rate. That way we'll be able to keep pace with inflation more appropriately. The request, as they presented during the study session, was for $600,000. That would cover the entire cost of their facility. And we certainly, whatever the amount is that the City Commission decides, we can adjust that. It will have a significant impact on the overall budget at that amount. But as you can see from the chart, irrespective of any amount, we're going to have to make adjustments anyway to the tipping rate in order to make sure that this facility does not go in the red. There are some additional costs that are not included in that chart before you, but that's because we're not certain that we're going to face them. They are more potential costs, or they are so far in the future, such as closing costs. We don't include those in the model because we have plenty of space at the landfill. We have no intention of closing the landfill anytime soon, but we do know that when that time comes, there will be very significant costs to close that landfill. Additionally, in some states, not currently in Kansas, there is a requirement that you either capture methane and flare it or recycle it. That will be another very substantial cost if the state ever decides to do that. Much like PFAS is constantly changing in terms of what the standards are with our shilling cleanup, that's a potential another cost. But again, those are not required costs right now, so we did not include those in the model. You also have a breakdown of some of the proposals for the level of support. And what you have before you is a resolution that allows you to fill in the level of support that you would like to see and for the duration. If you would like X amount for 3 years or 4 years, then you could amend that resolution to put what amount that you would like to see in there for the support. The request is for $600,000. That would allow them to purchase the building outright. But you will have the ability to set the amount of support, if any, at whatever rate you'd like. And I'd like to give these gentlemen the opportunity to present, and I'll try to answer. I'm sure they'll be able to answer the questions much more coherently than I will.
Phil Black and Gary Norris were the co-founders of Reuse It, Salina. 40 years? Seriously? I can't get my head around that one. 40 years in service. 2 years ago, while serving on the Solid Waste Management Committee, one of the staff members kind of offhandedly said, if there was a nonprofit willing to start a Reuse It kind of operation, there might be some money available. 2 years later, here we are. We have two very clear goals. One is we want to divert material from the landfill, which is the original purpose of the fund. And to that extent, we weigh everything, and we've managed since November 15th, when we officially began accepting donated materials, we've collected 10 tons, or a little over about 21,000 pounds. It's on our website, and we continue to collect. So it's about 1.5 or 1 1/4 tons per week. But the second goal, and probably the most important, given the fact that you have 180 years of land to fill into the landfill, is that we wanted to address the problem of low-cost housing. While we will not be going out and building houses, what we can do is take material that is perfectly good and remove it from the possibility of going to the landfill. And we've heard over and over from people who have come in is we didn't have time to sell it, it was going to have to go. So we are able to provide low-cost material for people who want to upgrade their homes in Salina, and perhaps even for organizations like the Community Housing Development Organization. So, and recently we had a young couple came in and bought what would probably have been $11,000 worth of cabinets for a tenth of that. So we consider that to be very, very important. We've had really broad and considerable support from the community. Between Mike and Penny Walker and Roy and Donna Applequist and Mike and Deborah Berkeley, we've received over $130,000 in funding to get us started. We've also received, thanks to Great Plains, a propane-powered forklift, which works just great. And we've also received pallet racks, like you'd see at Lowe's. You guys have all been out there, but not everybody's seen this. These huge racks that go up 11 feet or more, and knew that would have probably cost us $50,000 or $60,000 that were donated. 90% of it was donated by Vortex. And then finally, Mark Augustine with Triplet Storage has reduced our rent for a year by 73%, in the hope that we would be able to buy the building. So that's why we are here before you today. Now, Gary has a chart he's developed that gives you some of the options. Gary?
Sure. And with your permission, Phil, I want to go back and share with you a document I was just given today that puts a little more light on your actions and actions of prior city commissions. But in June of 1996, there was a solid waste management plan presented to the city commission. And the work on this was done by your solid waste management committee and city staff. And I was given an executive summary of the work done by the city staff, and I'd like to read two very quick comments from that done by former city manager Dennis Kissinger back in June of 2096. Dennis writes, in the anticipation that the city would develop this management plan, Dennis writes, while burial at the existing solid waste landfill remains primary ultimate disposal method for municipal solid waste during this planning period and beyond, the committee strongly believes that a significant amount of waste going into the landfill could be more appropriately disposed of, processed, or reused elsewhere. Therefore, a major goal of the solid waste management plan is to reduce the tonnage of solid waste disposed in the city's Subtle D-line landfill cells by 15% in the next 10 years. And so there was a consensus by the city commission at that time to try to hit a goal of 15%. We haven't quite got there yet. The goal was to, there was a projected rate of 100,000 tons a year, and there was a goal to getting it down to 85,000. And one other thing, I apologize for the reading, but I didn't have time to make copies. In this executive summary by the city manager, Dennis states that new solid waste services and those currently provided by the private sector will be presumed to be provided most optimally by the private sector unless evidence presented indicating that's not the case. For example, recycling services currently the private sector provides. Without good, and here's the operative sentence, without good cause, new government services in this area should be a second choice. The first option should be to provide support and assistance to the private sector providers to help them enhance their services to meet Saline County solid waste system needs. And so kind of like, for an explanation to our citizens listening on TV and here in the audience, it's a little like the Fram oil filter commercial that many of us remember from 100 years ago, where they said, you can pay me now or pay me later. The cost to manage, as the staff has said, the cost to manage and keep on managing and then eventually close cells at the landfill is very expensive. And we have no other goal in mind other than to try to help defray that cost a little bit. Not the least of which there's some recycling going on in the community, but we know from past other communities' experiences that reusing things is actually as effective, if not more effective, than...
It's higher on the chart.
It's higher on the chart of things you can do to cut back on the landfill. As a realtor and a home flipper, I have personally stood out at the landfill and watched people throw away perfectly good items that many of you are seeing donated now. So we'd like to encourage you to be a part of saving some of this large cost of landfill operation. Salina citizens familiar with the McPherson Reuse It Center that's been in operation about 18 years, and the Wichita Restore operation have said, why haven't we done this sooner? And they're very supportive of this whole notion of trying to reuse things. So final comment, this project is not for Phil Black or for Gary Norris. We're retired educators from two different sectors, and we're simply trying to help the community have other methods for disposal of waste. And I would say the chart that Phil referenced is our way of showing you if we can get close to paying for the cost of the building, then the chance that we're going to become operationally effective with a very small staff and a volunteer corps and be able to keep this process going for years and years and years. The process is enhanced by having your help purchasing the building. And so on your chart, the top 4 items there allow us to purchase a building, if not all at once, but allow us to purchase it on a contract for deed spread out over a few years. And the rest of funding at lower levels than that would basically enable us to pay lease payments, which, if that's what the city feels like is appropriate at this time, we're willing to pay lease payments. But our top choice would be to see if we could get coming close to purchasing the building. So thank you very much.
Do you have any questions for us, or shall we?
Well, one question. If you purchase the building, maybe it's for you and for city staff, but if you purchase the building, and let's just say things aren't as rosy 3 years down the road.
Right.
Is there a way to put in a provision that the property reverts back to the city, or does the city have some interest that we're protecting ourselves?
Certainly, if the city commission wants to do that, to provide the full amount to purchase the building, I would think we would probably have some sort of an agreement between us and the Reuse It Center that would have some sort of reversionary, if the Reuse It Center ceased to exist operation, that property would come back to the city in some way.
Okay. And if you were to go to lease payments, do they go up? I'm assuming your 70% discount goes away?
Yes.
All right.
What is the current lease payment?
The current, Mr. Hoppick, is about $1,600
What are we paying? I'm sorry, just one moment. Let me put in my cheap, poor guy hearing aid. The current lease payment is $1,600 a month, and the advertised rate was $6,000 per month.
It's a 12,000-foot commercial building with about 2,000 of that square footage being office-like space, and the warehouse is about 10,000 square feet. And it sits at 549 North Ohio, and I'd like to invite all the people seated immediately behind me to bring your donations starting tomorrow.
You said since November you've taken about a ton per week.
A little over.
Do you anticipate that being higher in the future?
Yeah.
Like,
At this rate, it'll
assume-
be 52 tons in a year, but we've been increasing, so.
It's been on up.
Does
As have our
McPherson
sales.
measure theirs? Does McPherson weigh theirs?
No.
No, okay. So
Very
you don't
few,
have,
very few
Okay.
reuse it centers do.
And none sell anything online. So we don't want to stay online. We will stay online, but we want to sell on ground as well, or on site, so.
my thought process is what we're keeping out of the, not necessarily what you're selling and making return on, but what we're keeping out of the landfill and how much that'll reduce the landfill's cost.
Yes. And was that a question, sir?
No, it's kind of a statement.
Okay. Well, that's our only goal. We only have two goals, that, and second of all, as Mr. Black said, to help people remodel homes or landlords to have cheaper access to things that would be perfectly fine to improve our city and maybe not pay brand new prices for them.
No, I realize you're starting up now. Do you have an estimate of when your sales will support the operational expenses?
Our best guess at this point, watching McPherson Reuse It Centers start up over the number of years, watching other restores, which were Habitat for Humanity branding, is 6 months is our best guesstimate to get to a level where we can afford approximately 3 to 5 employees and a cadre of maybe 10 volunteers a day, something like that, close to that area.
I think we may have an idea for you, Greg, when you.
Yeah,
We'll talk to you later. Any other
My wife is here. I think she's already thinking about donating the cabinets that I think are the new cabinets.
Right.
I have a few comments, Mr. Mayor. Met with the gentleman earlier. I think it's great what you're trying to do. I do think we need to keep in mind that that building was empty for 3, 4, 5 years. We talked about that earlier. So while the rent has been dramatically reduced, it's better than sitting there generating nothing, and who in the heck knows what the future is going to bring. I'm looking at one of the options of the $50,000 a year grant to help make this come to fruition. I could easily wrap my arms around that if we, doing a little bit of quick math, as I understand it, the Sherrills are roughly $400 each. Well, that's only 125 Sherrills that we would have to get rid of in the community to save 50 grand. And I would think we get a lot better bang for the buck putting that money, trying to help divert these materials from the landfill.
Well, first of all, Mr. Augustine has talked about his concern that by keeping the rent low, that he won't be able to do the necessary upkeep of the building, that, let's say that, God forbid, somehow or another, we didn't last a year. He wants to make sure that the building is still in good enough condition that he can be able to sell it and use it. So as to the Sherrills, I don't know that it's a either or thing. I appreciate your thoughts about that.
I think those come out of a different fund anyway.
I just don't want to increase the overall budget.
They're already there, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Linkowitz?
More of an observation and just maybe delving too deep into it long term, but appreciate what you guys are doing. I think there's, hopefully there's something we can figure out here to assist. But I do think that the argument that, hey, this is stuff that's staying out of the landfill, some of that is going to eventually make its way, whether it's in another town, especially things that are kind of limited lifespan, like monitors, computers, copiers, etc. But I think the household stuff definitely something that's going to be long term, and I can appreciate. But what I keep coming back to is I guess I should ask if the property owner is agreeable to the contract for deed, the $100,000 per year. Is that something he's open to? How would that work?
I'm sorry?
That's fine.
We haven't discussed a specific amount. We haven't had that negotiation yet. I think he realizes the building won't sell as is for a much higher, more retail amount. So I do think he's open to a contract for deed, but we haven't specified a specific amount, Commissioner Linkwitz.
I appreciate that, and probably worth mentioning as well, I know when I toured it, there was room for expansion if needed.
Yes.
Please refresh my recollection on that. How much square footage roughly would you be able to expand?
Of our 10,000 square foot warehouse, we could probably, staying within our property boundaries and city setbacks and all of that, probably by 35% or so.
All right, thank you.
I know from looking at your proposal, you're estimating being open 60 hours a week. What's the hours for McPherson, Wichita? Wasn't one of those fairly minimal? What's that?
McPherson is 8 hours a week. Wichita is 60 hours a week.
8 and 60.
And Commissioner Hoppick, the 60 is our eventual goal, to be open 6 days a week, 9 hours per day. That's eventual. We think we can start up in March if we can get rolling. We think we can start up with at least 25 hours a week, which is 3 or 4 times that of McPherson.
Where's the funding for the McPherson and the Wichita? Where does their funding come from? Do you know, to run their reuse it?
Well, all of the funding now for McPherson, since they have a building, and I don't know, I can't provide you a real good cost accounting of what they did 15 years ago, but their building is totally paid for now, but all of the operational costs come from the turnover of materials. And in Wichita, Habitat for Humanity holds those numbers pretty close to their chest, but they clearly they make $1 million. McPherson Reuse It Center, their operational budget and their intake is about $300,000 a year. The one in Wichita is open, it takes in about $1.5 million a year, and of that, about 20% goes back to the community from each organization, and we hope to do at least that after we get operational. So 20% in Wichita goes back into Habitat for Humanity homes, and 20% in McPherson goes into many of their community charities.
Yeah, and again, part of, my concern with this, and that's why I had I asked Sean, was to prepare a budget so we could kind of see where the operating funds were. And I guess, Sean, when I look at and I'll let Jacob and Greg to weigh in, when I look at the 98 resolution, it appears to me, is that resolution just for 1 year? Because it's under Section D, it states commission consideration, if any, reauthorizing for future years. And I know the 8 years I've been on, we've never discussed this.
Well, I think the original, you'll also notice in there, in the original 1998 resolution, it says, the maximum amount is $200,000.
Yeah.
But I believe that was just because that was the amount of funds that had been generated and that would potentially be available at that point in time. It wasn't saying you could never spend more than $200,000. It was saying that when we first start these funds, or these grants, or whatever purposes we wanted to use this for, we wouldn't be able to spend $200,000 because that's how much we generated. Okay. So I have to go back to recollect. It was my belief that the resolution did not have a time limit on it. That's the reason why we continue to calculate the tipping fee. Again, it has not been utilized for, I believe, 8 years to purchase anything. But again, it's not really a separate fund. It's just per ton, we say there potentially could be $1 available for diversion efforts. And the reason why it's built up so much, when I say built up, that's just the calculation, is because we have not been spending money for venture grants and for other purposes. We've been utilizing the recycling center, the household hazardous waste, and that's funded separately. So that's why this tipping fee amount has gone up, potentially.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback onto Commissioner Rimp, I think you're right. This building's been vacant. I think the building's better off being occupied than being vacant. So
case
is the usual case. Yeah, I could see doing several years, just looking at our budget of maybe $50,000-$75,000 for a couple 3 years to see the progress that's made, and then I think at that point this would need to be reevaluated to see if that could be increased. But that's just looking at the budget. That's kind of my thought process.
Well, I thought about the reevaluation in 3 years, but then I'm also looking at what amount helps guarantee their success. I mean, if they're very hamstrung financially, the likelihood of them having a good report in 3 years goes down. And our best ability to, I think, help them be successful in 3 years would be the 100,000. It could be 5 or 6. I mean, they should probably have some skin in the game as far as buying the building. But it takes care of the HVAC, and I don't know much about that. I can imagine what that contract is like, but increase the likelihood of getting the seller to agree to that type of
And I guess
purchase.
I guess not having their budget in front of me, they anticipate McPherson, generates $300,000 a year, and Wichita $1.5 million. So if they're anywhere in that area, what do you anticipate overhead to be on an annual basis for?
Would you define overhead just so I can answer your question?
Rent, lease payments, personnel, heat and air conditioning, all that, I guess.
Yeah. If we are successful in the first 6 months and are able to get the staff hired, and we believe we can take in or be at the level by the time we finish taking in $300,000, and we believe that is operational and paying that excludes any lease payment. So if the lease payment would take that amount up to like $370,000 a year then, after 6 months.
Well, if it goes back up,
yeah,
then it'll be $72,000 a year,
right,
just in lease payments.
Right. So your operation would be $300,000 plus the 72.
Yes.
So you'd be at 372, and you're kind of anticipating generating those funds through the sale, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We continue to ask for donations too. I mean, that's
So basically,
cash donations,
if I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So if everything goes as planned, within a year or two, you'll be generating 300 and some thousand, which would cover rent plus your operational costs for employees, heating, air conditioning.
Right.
Yes.
Well, if they're widely successful, if they have a $100,000 payment due each year for the purchase, and they're taking in X numbers of excess dollars over what we expected, then our contribution for that year, I'll just make it up, year 4, could be a lot less just because they don't need it. And, maybe 100,000 should be an up to 100,000.
Again,
Based on,
I think
but look back after 3 years. Yeah.
And even though I feel like this is it's a good program, and again, I've recycled since 1980, I don't see us as a taxpayer purchasing a property for another entity. I don't know if that, if we were going to do anything, we would look at buying the building and leasing it to them for $1 a year if we ever got that far down the road.
Is that doable?
I mean, that's...
I guess anything's doable. I mean, is it legal and doable?
Certainly think we could do that.
Yeah, I don't...
That would make more sense than $6,000. I mean, we'd essentially be paying a lease payment by going with any of these lower figures that wouldn't buy the building.
Should we hear from the public? Why don't we see if the public
session?
Okay. Well, does anyone in the public have comments or questions they'd like to ask?
Ben Winholt, Salina. I am totally for this Reuse It Center, and I commend these two gentlemen for taking on this endeavor. But let me give you all a little bit of history of what Salina has went through when it comes to recycling important things that need to go out of the landfill. Before we got our new trash trucks that are automated and doesn't mean much personnel, everything was loaded through carts that were put at the curb from individuals that had to do it. And there was a program in place where you were able to get a smaller dark green cart and put your yard waste into this. I'm a very good friend of Kansas, where this product was supposed to be going, because they are a company that does compost, and when it turns to dirt, it is rich soil, and they turn around and sell it. And so the city had signed a contract with Kansas to be able to bring all of the yard waste, and they had a separate truck that went around basically and picked up all of this yard waste and took it out to Kansas. Well, they couldn't maintain it because of the fact that they couldn't get employees to do it, and so Kansas, in their contract, had 2 years that they were paid by the city, and there was absolutely no material coming out to them. I think, along with the Reuse It Center of solid items, which is a great thing, the city needs to possibly look into another yard waste program, because that is a lot of material mixed into the trucks that now dump with an arm going out to the landfill. Cannot be separated because it's in with the trash and everything. We need to look into that. Second, since this is possibly going to be a private public partnership that the city likes to get into, I guess my question to Mr. Wood would be, does the city already have a building that could be used for this? I realize that their building they have is a great location, and they've already started online and have it well stocked already, but does the city already have a building that these gentlemen could move into that? No, nothing.
We do not.
Okay. Well, piggying back on that then, if you're going to give them $100,000 to go towards the lease, I would think the city would be well ahead, instead of giving them money over a year, than to purchase the building themselves and revert back to renting it to them for X amount of dollars, because otherwise you're just like renters do. You're throwing your money down the drain, and you have no ownership whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay.
I know there's a feel among us that we want to do something. Just to come up with something right now, it just seems like it's going to be very difficult. I don't know if we do that in an executive session or if we get together beforehand, before the next meeting, or if we want to try to come up with something on the fly.
Well, I had said jokingly, looks like we may be heading back to another study session, but that would, I think, be the venue in which we could do it. It's open discussion, but without the pressure of making a legally binding decision. I feel a little more educated now, and I've heard other ideas float around, and this might be one. I don't know what the study session schedule is like, but
we could get it on a study session, I think, in fairly short order. We don't have a whole lot on study sessions.
I know we've had one, but I think we need to. Yeah, I'm fine with that because I see pros and cons to both sides. I'm not sure how we would be able to, structure something that would allow us to own the building, and I'm not sure we want to own a building. If this would go south on us in 2 to 3 years, I don't know if we really want to own a building either. So that's a discussion we need to have.
Well, we can put our fancy new trucks inside. But
so
they don't have a home right now.
So I guess with that, I need some type of motion from the commission, and you have several options there. If you go to page 3 of the blue sheet.
Mayor Hoppick, I move that we postpone consideration of resolution number 268327 and provide guidance to staff on additional requested information.
Which I guess with that would be an updated study session. So do we need to put a specific date on any of that? See, legal counsel's still here. He's still paying attention, getting paid.
And I'm looking at Mr. Hoffman out of the corner of my eye to make sure I don't misstep. But, no, I would think as you either have a choice of setting a specific date so that it's not just out there indefinitely, or to authorize staff at a point in time that they are prepared to present whatever information you might wish to receive, just to enable staff to place that on a study session that is timely.
So I guess we could put on there, we have a motion, provide guidance to staff on additional requested information. I guess we could add to that, Commissioner Ivey, that being one of a upcoming study session. Would that be, would you be willing to amend your?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Second that.
Do I need to actually amend it?
Yeah, Commissioners, I would request that you give some guidance on what exactly you would like to be presented at that study session, because I don't think we want to go over the same issues. Are you looking more for some of the financials that they can provide longer term? Or?
Yeah, I think, and again, it's all guesswork on their part because they haven't, they'd have to look at other reuse it centers, but maybe a cash flow analysis on their part.
Okay.
And then some guidance on how we could structure a purchase of that building.
Yeah.
And again, I know Mr. Black at one time had concerns about us owning the building and you putting dollars into heating and air conditioning at one time. So that would be something we'd have to have a discussion with them on. And then I guess how we would go about, and again, I look at Mr. Black and Mr. Norris, that $600,000 sale price, is that an appraised value or is that just?
It's always worth more to the seller than the buyer. You remember that,
Oh,
Mr.
of course,
Norris, as
of
a
course.
realtor?
Of course. The $600,000 was a calculation based upon what we had been told the seller was asking for the building. And this is months and months ago.
Okay.
That's number one. Plus some handicap accessible things right up around the front door and the excuse me, the HVAC system.
Okay.
And so that totaled, we believe the building can, for some of the reasons Mr. Remp stated, that the building could probably be purchased for less. And
Okay, thank you. And just, I know Commissioner Remps knew at this, there's only certain reasons we go into executive session, and this discussion that we're doing today has to be out in the public. But I'm going to look at legal counsel. If we got to the point where we were interested in buying the building, we could go into executive session to discuss negotiations on that purchase. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
There is a.
I'm looking over here. I guess I'm
Well, yeah,
I got a new attorney over here, so.
That's why I keep looking that way. And I welcome his comment based on what I'm about to say. There are two bases that are potentially relevant for an executive session in this context. The one has to do with preliminary discussions related to the potential acquisition of real estate. The second has to do with attorney-client privilege discussions. I would expect that there would have to be some careful consideration as to when you're under either of those two exceptions. Once I think you transition into any sort of negotiation scenario, you'll want to be careful, because then as you transition to that, it does become more of an attorney-client privilege discussion as you might work toward negotiating a purchase.
Mr. Hennessy, does that help any? Yes and
Yes,
no?
yes, Commissioner. I'll work with them to see about getting more of the cash flow analysis. I'll talk with, both city attorneys for the next week or so about potentially structure for if we were to do it, an outright purchase of the building, how it would be structured in such a way that it would be leased back to them at a nominal amount. And we will see about scheduling that and bringing that back to you for a presentation.
And we'll do a cash flow analysis for you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, let's see, do we have a second on that motion?
We do.
Okay. We had a motion and a second to postpone consideration of resolution number 26-8327, providing guidance to staff on additional requested information to be presented at a future study session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that postponement passes 5-0, and Mr. Hennessy will be back in touch with you guys, and we'll continue moving forward. Thank you, guys. Okay, that leads us to item 5.5.
Item 5.5, consider approval of ordinance number 26-11276, repealing Salina Code Sections 1-5.1 and 1-5.2 pertaining to the subject of consideration and publication of ordinances.
Okay, Jake, Mr. Wood.
I'm going to turn this quickly over to Mr. Bengtson. I'm trying to get as much out of him as I can in this last meeting. So this is kind of a cleanup item that Greg brought forward, and I'll just let him present it.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I think this will be an easier one. But we do have to go back to 2012, when the Kansas legislature made two legislative changes that have affected the way you consider and publish ordinances. Prior to 2012, cities of the first class had to conduct two readings anytime they considered an ordinance. The 2012 legislature changed that rule so that cities of the first class no longer had to conduct two readings. The other part of that legislation was to enable the publication of ordinances by summary, as long as certain procedures were followed that were outlined in the statute. At that time, the City Commission chose to retain the two reading requirement. Consideration that two separate meetings could not happen at the same meeting unless there was a declaration of an emergency. At the same time, the City Commission passed an ordinance that codified that process for publication by summary. And we squeezed those provisions in to Chapter 1, which are your general provisions. That's what prompted this rather odd-looking number. We shoehorned them into Section 5 as Section 5.1 and Section 5.2. We then transition to City Commission actions in 2023 that I believe you will find that renders this 2012 ordinance academic and of no further purpose. But what happened in 2023, as many of you will recall, was first of all the elimination of the two reading requirement, so that we essentially conform to the statutory change that was made in 2012. We did that with just a very general change to 1-5.1 by making reference to state law, but left the outline of the publication by summary in place. The other thing that occurred at that time, excuse me, was the charter ordinance that you'll recall, and then the actions taken to enable publication of ordinances on the city's website. Now, at that time, I didn't recommend that change of Section 1-5.2 out of a sense that at that time, I think everyone thought that the publication in full on the city's website would work, but it was somewhat experimental. Now that there have been 2 years with that practice in place of publishing in full on the city's website, and assuming that has seemed to work well and satisfactorily for everyone, if that's the case, it would seem to justify simply eliminating 1-5.1 and 1-5.2, excuse me, because we're following state law as to your consideration. The option of publishing by summary is still available under state law, but with the experience that we've had with publication in full on the website, it would seem that these specific provisions on how you publish by summary are no longer in use or of any help. They're still there in state law if for some unanticipated reason we would want to publish something by summary. But that's what prompted the recommendation that by the ordinance that is presented to you, it simply repeals 1-5.1 and 1-5.2, and we're then able to simply defer to state law on both matters.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Now, if I don't hear any more words, I think I got one more word. I'm with you. Okay.
I have one comment. Really doesn't pertain to anything that Mr. Bengtson just said. But on the city's website, when, say it's a rezoning request, and we're told to go to like 26- whatever, it seems like when we get on the website, it should be at the bottom or at the top. Frequently, it seems like you got to search through all the different publications to find what you're looking for. It just seems like they should go on there by date or something. It seems like it'd be an easy thing to do in this day and age. And it might be just me having a hard time finding things at times.
I don't know if Mr. Wood wants to comment on that.
Take a look at that.
It is a matter of the heading at the top. When you go to the city website, it is under the government queue or whatever you call what you
Right.
punch in technical terms.
Well, frequently we have a click here that.
Yeah,
that-
and when you do that, it does take you to the city code, and that's where those codified numbered sections appear.
Well, if I could interject, since this
Sure.
is kind of my purview, what he's talking about is the link in the email takes you to the folder where the PDF versions of these publications are, and they are organized by name. The email does refer you, though, to the new section on the homepage, which is right smack in the middle, and then those are organized by date, and they have the same content as the PDFs as well. So if you're ever having trouble finding something, it's sometimes a little bit easier to find it there right on that news section of the homepage, because those are organized by date. But I'll get in touch with the developers and see if we can have that organized by date rather than just by file name.
And
Thank you, Nikki.
And Nikki, we may need a study session with you too, so, to be honest. I'm being serious, really. So, okay. Any other comments? Comments from the public? Okay, if not, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
I move to adopt ordinance number 26-11276, repealing Salina Code sections 1-5.1 and 1-5.2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 26-11276, repealing Salina Code sections 1-5.1 and 1-5.2. We will do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivy?
Aye.
Commissioner Lankwitz?
Aye.
Commissioner Remp?
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick?
Aye. That item passes 5-0. That will lead us to item 5.6, or excuse me, item, guess I better change my page, 6.1.
Item 6.1, consider approval of resolution number 26-8331, establishing the Community Housing Development Organization Infill Housing Support Program as a one-year pilot program and authorizing the city manager or designee to administer the program.
Ms. Driscoll.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. To give you a brief overview of this initiative would support our infill housing strategy that we have been working on as part of the Live Salina plan, originally adopted in 2016 with additional updates in 2021 and 2022. The city has been implementing this strategy over phases. Identified in 2025 through 2030 was looking at more ways to develop infill housing and in sustainable ways for established neighborhoods. Part of our efforts have been redoing or rehabbing existing homes. We have nearly $1 million in Federal Home Loan Bank and over $300,000 in CDBG or Community Development Block Grant. This would be one more piece kind of in that puzzle of the toolbox that we are trying to build. This program is limited to 1 year. It is a pilot program. And it is limited to the CHODO. The Community Housing Development Organization, commonly referred to as CHODO, is a HUD-certified nonprofit developer. They specifically have to follow HUD guidelines that recognize affordability, governance, and compliance requirements. The CHODO has been making over the last, I think I've been here 8 going on 9 years, several investments, purchasing homes, rehabbing those, renting those, flipping and selling homes, all in our established neighborhoods. Over this last couple of years, they've been looking at densifying lots. And one of the things that they've encountered is often in some of those neighborhoods, once you start adding a unit or adding a structure to that, you start to get into the multifamily category, which then would require fencing or landscaping. Over the years, as the CHODO has been working on things, they have been looking at opportunities to partner with the city. Many communities that have well-established CHODOs will often do partnering with them for development as nonprofits in the community. We hadn't quite found the right vehicle for that, but in looking at meeting our objectives in the Live Salina plan, having a provider that could do that had requirements that already matched what we were trying to do in the Live Salina plan, it seemed a logical fit. Plus, we've had members of the public ask us why we don't do things like this for maybe just roofs or just landscaping or just driveways. And the other programs that we run for rehab are through other grants, so they have their own set of criteria. We thought this would be a good pilot program to start in kind of the little things and see how this goes. This will deal specifically with infill, so these are established lots, and it will require adding units. And it will also increase neighborhood compatibility. You know, one of the things with fencing and the landscaper buffering really helps to have those additional uses be compatible in the neighborhood. Even though the zoning allows it, you know, somebody hasn't seen that outside their backyard forever. And so, or they think one more driveway in the car or one more car in the driveway is going to affect them. Okay, well, that's why we have fences. You know, that's where we can put in some more trees. So this would allow the CHOTO to meet those requirements up to $5,000 per project. So max spend on this project is $25,000 a year. So again, very limited margin. We're just doing a small pilot project. It is also completely reimbursable. We're not giving any money up front. They have to submit receipts. We're also keeping this simple in the fact that when they come in to submit their building permits or do any of their entitlement work like zoning, we would know they're the CHOTO, what neighborhoods they're in, and we would start their paperwork to see if these things qualify up front. If so, then they'd fill out the form, get them in the system. When the project is complete and we're doing certificate of occupancy, that would be their time. Or sometimes in landscaping, depending on the time of year, we may do an agreement for ideal planting seasons. Like right now, if you came in, we would let you do your landscaping in a couple of months. But the idea is 30 months after that final landscaping period, they would have to get their receipts submitted to us, and then we would be able to process that. But if they don't submit receipts, then they're just not moving forward on that project. It doesn't stop that project, and we're not putting out any money. So with that, we have proposed this program. You have option 1 is to approve the program as presented. Again, that's a 1-year pilot program. Max spend $25,000, up to $5,000 per project reimbursable, working with the CHOTO. Option 2 would be to approve the program with modifications, or option 3 is to direct staff to return revisions at a different time for you to further discuss, or option 4 is to decline this program and to look at supporting infill housing other ways. With that, I'm happy to take questions, and I also believe representation from the CHOTO is here, so I'm sure they'd be happy to answer questions.
I have a question. Okay. Ms. Lauren, I got to get used to saying CHOTO. When the organization, when they rehab a home, and say they add on it, they make it a two-party, a duplex or a two-party residence. When they have the finished product, what happens with the finished product? Is it just sold on the market?
It depends. Sometimes they rent them, sometimes they sell them. Typically, just turning something to a duplex wouldn't kick in buffering and landscaping requirements because that's not considered multifamily. Multifamily is anything 3 units and higher typically. It's usually if they're looking at adding an additional unit onto that lot, or sometimes it's more units. But it's usually something that's already at 2 and going higher. But they can rent, the CHOTO rents, and the CHOTO does sell. But the idea is we're stabilizing the housing market. You're getting more units in neighborhoods that are able to handle higher density. And so whether they sell them or rent them, from the perspective of the city's Live Salina plan, even if a nonprofit developer sells them, they're making a small margin, and what they make, they put back into the program versus somebody else, which is one of the reasons we're doing it with CHOTO.
I'll go a little deeper in why I ask. If one of the property owners in town, if they were to purchase it, we're trying to keep, for CHOTO, we're trying to keep their costs to an absolute minimum, and then a property owner buys it. To me, it seems like whatever they buy it at, that may or may not have anything to do with the rent that they charge. I don't blame the landlords. They're going to charge what the market will stand. And I know housing, the cost of housing and the cost of renting in our community is not for the faint of wallet, anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure the Choda would be happy to talk to you more about it. What I would say is there's a risk in doing this that other people aren't doing. And even if they are doing it, that's why it's a pilot program, is we already know a lot about the Choda. We know a lot about, who they sell to, how they sell, how much they're making off of things, which makes it easier to do a test program to see, okay, how does even administering this work? Then if we opened it up to a bigger audience, things that you're asking about, like how much is somebody making off of a sale, how much are they renting it for, all of that takes a ton to track. And the Live Salina plan says, frankly, you just need units. And most of those established neighborhoods, the market is going to bear what the rent can bear. And so it's pretty hard to overprice in some of those. They're typically smaller units. They're definitely workforce level. So,
okay.
But we're happy to do some more research, and I'm sure Gary Hobby would be happy to talk about that, who's here from the Choda.
It's not a whole lot of money, and I like the fact that the money's going to stay put until they go through the proper steps to seek reimbursement for one of the approved costs. So I think it's a good thing. Anything that increases the, affordable housing supply.
That's the hope.
Any other questions or comments? No. Yeah, I would, Commissioner Remp, if you have an opportunity, I would suggest you go meet with representatives from the Chodos. They can kind of tell you what they do and how it works, because it's an organization that's done a really good job in the community. They've bought in properties that needed rehabbed and have sold them at reasonable prices and done some things that nobody in the open market really wanted to do. So I would ask that when we do one of these, if you could send us pictures so we kind of see what's been done. That would be great, just so we can know what
That's very doable.
I figured it was. So anyway, okay. Any comments from the public on this? Oh, got somebody.
Hi, my name is Alex Bischel, at Salina, Kansas. Something that stood out to me is that at a certain, she said that at a certain point with these infill developments that you get into like multifamily, and we had a presentation with homelessness as a housing problem. We had a housing assessment a few years back that said that we need to work on more middle housing, which includes multifamily housing. So something that you could add on to that is just allowing zoning for allowing adding on multifamily housing in single-family zone neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. Hobby, haven't seen you in a while.
Sir. Mayor, Commissioners, I am Gary Hobby from Salina. I am one of the board members and volunteers for the Community Housing Development Corporation of Central Kansas. We are an LLC that does housing organization in Salina. Excuse me, over the last 8-9 years, we have completed 9 homes, of which we purchased those homes. We use a lot of volunteer labor to renovate those homes. Whenever we get into required city codes and that type of stuff with heating and air conditioning, plumbing, mechanical work, and that type of stuff, we hire local contractors to come in and help us do that. Many times those contractors give us a benefit of us giving them a donation of time and effort, so we really appreciate that. We are presently finishing up our 10th home, and we started in 2018 with 2018 with our first home. We had a local grant given to us to start up to purchase and renovations. I have with me our office manager, who is Kim Cochran. She takes care of all of our rental units as well as keeps the rest of us volunteers in line. Next to her is Jimmy Popberg. He is our newest board member. He's also a major volunteer for us working on our projects. We have 44 rental units we have purchased from Salina Housing Authority about 3.5 years ago. Of those 44 units, 100% of those are low to moderate income and they have restrictions to each one of those. We cannot charge market rate for our rental units. It's just out of the ballgame for us. The maximum we could charge is 80%, or an income of up to 80% of the local median income. That still puts us into the low to moderate income group. About half, maybe a little more than half of our rental units, I think there's 26 of them now, that have vouchers. And each month, they are giving funds from Housing and Urban Development that's passed through the Salina Housing Authority to help them reduce their housing costs. And so we're looking at projects with people that are in the low to moderate. We have some that have 100% of their rent paid, and we have some that are up to around 10% of their rentals paid. It all depends on their income, which they have to verify every month in order for us to do that. So you guys are familiar with a lot of that. This was initiated to the city because we have a property at North 4th and Harsh, which is a block north of Pacific Avenue on 4th Street. 1994 and 1996, the Salina Housing Authority built 2 homes on 3 separate lots. Those 3 lots then incorporated us to having a vacant area between those 2 homes. And it was always in the back of my mind, after having been through the 2016 housing study and various revisions since, that we needed some single-bedroom homes. Our office manager reminds us almost every month at our board meeting that if we had another one-bedroom home, I could have rented it 2 times, 3 times, maybe 4 times this last month. So we looked at an opportunity to put in a 3rd house on these 3 lots. It then throws us into, as Ms. Driscoll mentioned, into the multifamily area. And with that, it requires us to put a 6-foot screening fence between us and the neighboring properties, which happens to be on the north and the west side. The west side is an alley, north side is another rental unit. It also requires us to have a 10-foot landscaping buffer area, which would incorporate about 6 feet of 2 houses. So we'd have to narrow up that or work in that program. It requires us to add at least 5 more trees. It requires us to put in at least 25 bushes or shrubs within that system. Our biggest concern is, yes, the cost of putting in those infrastructure work, that type of stuff, but what we do in the future is we require our tenants to take care of the land. And when they have issues with being able to make their monthly payments the way they are, it's really a concern to us, our long-range planning. And so we'll have to have some of our staff or some of our volunteers go over and water each one of those 30 different plantings that we put in there, and make sure that the graffiti on the fence is taken care of within a timely manner. And we have to do all those things. So we really would appreciate being able to work with us with this grant and this amount of money that will help us considerably put in this program. Our conditional use permit was passed by the Planning Commission. We are now into the Zoning Board of Appeals for an appealing to some of the landscape requirements that are in this project. North 4th, as you know, is not the most beautified section of the community, and so we feel like it would be a challenge not only for our tenants to keep up with the landscape and that type of stuff in the long run, but also for our initial costs getting into the program. I would love to be able to come up and give you a program on, show you all 10 of our homes. Our 10th home will probably finish here within the next month, and we're excited about getting that back on the market and getting into another family. We do pre-qualify income-wise every person we put into our new homes or our renovated homes. This will be our first new build and could be a potential stepping stone into multiple others that we'd like to look into the program. So if you're looking at additional grants for cutting back on landfill fees and that type of stuff, or other areas of the budget, we'd be more than glad to accept any donations from this city of Salina. I'd answer any questions if you wish.
Any questions? I apologize for not calling you up before I open it up to public comments.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else from the public? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for...
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 26-8331, establishing the CHDO Chodo Infill Housing Support Program as a 1-year pilot program
and authorizing the city manager or designee to administer the program.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second approving resolution number 26-8331, establishing the Chodo Infill Housing Support Program as a one-year pilot program and authorizing the city manager or designee to administer the program. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes 5-0. Thank you and good luck. That leads us to item 6.2.
Item 6.2, consider approval of ordinance number 26-11275, rezoning Lot 1, Block 5 of the Mariposa subdivision from PDD/R2, multiple family residential, to R-S, residential suburban.
Mr.
Good evening, Mayor.
Roberts.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Dustin Michelson, Planning Manager with the Planning Division. Before you is application Z25-6 filed by Tyler Adams requesting a change in zoning district classification for Lot 1, Block 5 of the Mariposa subdivision. This request is to rezone this 7.11 acre tract from its current designation of PDD R2, multiple family residential, to RS, residential suburban. The subject property is currently a vacant lot, and the applicant's intent for this rezoning is to allow for the construction of a single-family residence. Under the current PDD R2 zoning, the property was originally intended for a multiple-family development, but the applicant is seeking a less intensive residential use with this request. So just to give some brief background on this, in 1963, the Graves family acquired the southwest quarter of Section 20 in Salina County. And this quarter section is bounded on the south by Cloud Street and the west by Marymount Road and contains 160 acres. In 1988, a master plan for the remaining Graves Trust land, known as the Mariposa Master Plan, was approved in concept by the City of Salina and Salina County. That plan called for the closure of Cloud Street adjacent to the Elks Club and construction of a new realigned collector street connecting Marymount and Markley Road with residential development occurring north and south of the new street. Originally Mariposa Drive, and that was later renamed to Cedar Ridge Drive. The City Planning Commission approved a final plat of the Mariposa addition, which contained 49 single-family lots and a townhome area, which is Block 5, located between the single-family area and what is now the Grand Prairie addition. The only remaining portion of the Mariposa Master Plan that is still undeveloped is this Block 5 of the Mariposa addition, located between Mariposa and Grand Prairie. So this undeveloped block is the subject of the rezoning application before you today. So Megan and Tyler Adams have purchased this 7.11 acre lot and are proposing to rezone it to RS, residential suburban. The property is presently zoned PDD R2, as I said. So this property was originally platted and zoned in 1989 as part of the Mariposa subdivision and was proposed to be the location for multifamily housing. Over time, it has changed hands and no multifamily development has taken place. So the new owners are proposing to rezone the property in order to build one single-family residence with accessory structures.
Could I interrupt just for a moment?
Let's let him finish.
Okay.
If we could.
Sure.
And then we'll ask questions.
Okay.
So just give you an idea of the intent and purpose of the RS district. The RS district is designed for single-family dwellings and compatible uses at a density not less than 1 acre per dwelling unit. And as far as the zoning ordinance requirements, we've listed some of those, or we've listed those on page 2 and 3 of your staff report. But those include the uses allowed, the setbacks, or the minimum setbacks, minimum lot dimensions, maximum lot coverage, structure heights, parking requirements, and landscaping requirements. And there are some other factors that we look at with rezoning applications, so I'll go into some of those in a little bit more detail here. We have a suitability of the site for development under the existing zoning. This factor deals with the suitability of the property for development under the existing PDD/R2 zoning and the extent to which the current zoning inhibits the development and use of the property. So the subject property is adjacent to existing single-family residential development to the east, west, and south and is accessible from Cedar Ridge Drive. And the property is not located within the 100-year floodplain. And the conditions on the property are suitable for residential development. And the applicant mentions in their application that this property has been vacant as zoned for over 35 years, so it's closer to 36 to 37 years, and has been shown unsuitable for cluster townhome development in the manner that it was originally intended or conceptualized. The applicant has recently purchased the property and would like to construct a single-family home, and the current PDD zoning does not allow for the construction of that type of dwelling on this lot. So some of the physical attributes of this property and the availability of public utilities make it slightly more suitable for residential development. And the proposed density is consistent with the housing areas to the east, west, and south. As far as character of the neighborhood, this factor deals with whether the requested RS zoning would be compatible with the zoning and uses of nearby property. So this area is in an existing residential neighborhood. The property is surrounded by residentially zoned property on 3 sides, to the east, south, and west, and then you have the golf course to the north. To the west is PDD/R zoned residential property that is part of the Mariposa subdivision. To the south is R zoned property, residential property, which is part of Cedar Ridge addition. And finally, to the east is R1 zoned property, which is the Grand Prairie addition. And like I said, the Salina Municipal Golf Course provides a buffer to the north, while otherwise being surrounded by residential lots. As far as public utilities and services, we look at that factor and whether the proposed rezoning would create traffic congestion, overtax public utilities, cause drainage problems, overload public schools, jeopardize fire or police protection, or otherwise detrimentally affect public services, and whether the property owner or developer would provide the public improvements necessary to adequately serve the development. So as far as water, this property is served by an 8-inch water line that runs east-west along Cedar Ridge Drive. As far as sanitary sewer, Cedar Ridge Drive does not have a public sanitary sewer main, but all the residential properties adjacent to the subject property are connected to public sanitary sewer. The owners or their engineer would need to work with the utilities division to determine the appropriate location to connect into the existing public sanitary sewer network as part of the development of the lot. As far as storm drainage, today the runoff naturally flows across this site to the golf course and eventually to the Mariposa Pond. This parcel was included in the 1989 drainage study calculations that sized the pond, meaning that the pond is already sized to accept runoff from a townhome style development. And the construction of a single family home on this lot would produce far less runoff than the original plan and can be accommodated in the existing pond without any modifications or improvements. As far as emergency services and fire protection, emergency response to this area comes from Fire Station 4 on Briarcliff Road, just north of Crawford Street. In the future, this property would be served by the new Fire Station 4 being constructed on the corner of Markley and Crawford. This property is also contiguous to areas that are within the existing city limits and already receive city police and fire protection. And as far as schools, students in this proposed development of this lot would attend Meadowlark Elementary for grades 1 through 5, Lakewood Middle School for grades 6 through 8, Salina Central High for grades 9 through 12. And as far as other utilities, this lot is within Evergy's service territory for electrical service and is not part of a rural water district. And for gas service, the property would be served by Kansas Gas. As far as street access and improvements, the property has street access to Cedar Ridge Drive to the south, and the future residential dwelling would require a driveway connection to Cedar Ridge Drive. Cedar Ridge Drive has a right-of-way width of 60 feet, which appears to be adequate for the way the street currently functions. There are no improvements to Cedar Ridge Drive being proposed, and it does not appear that the development of this lot would require any improvements to the existing street. The next factor is the conformance to the comprehensive plan. This factor deals with whether the proposed rezoning would be contrary to the goals, objectives, and policies of the plan, and whether the proposed rezoning would require an amendment to the plan. The city's future land use map shows this area as being appropriate for suburban residential, a mixed-use category that includes single-family dwellings as the primary uses and multifamily dwellings, along with civic and institutional uses as the secondary uses. The applicant's proposed use is consistent with this suburban residential designation. On January 6, 2026, the Salina City Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this item, and following a presentation of the staff report and comments from Mr. Adams and comments from Dean Andrew, the applicant's representative, the Planning Commission voted 8-0 to recommend that the zoning map of the City of Salina be amended to change the zoning classification of the property from PDD/R2 to RS as requested. The Planning Commission's findings included in their recommendation are as follows. 1, the location and physical attributes of this property make it suitable for residential development. 2, the city has already extended utilities to this area and no public utilities would need to be provided. 3, rezoning of the subject property for residential development could be viewed as contiguous infill development of the property that is already surrounded by the city. 4, the subject site is adjacent to existing R zoning to the south, R1 zoning to the east, and PDD/R zoning to the west, and a change to RS zoning would be compatible with the existing residential zoning pattern along Cedar Ridge Drive. 5, the requested zoning change and proposed residential density would be consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, which identifies the property as suitable for residential, suburban residential type development. And lastly, number 6, due to the lack of development of multifamily residential housing as originally planned 37 years ago, the change in zoning from the existing PDD R2 zoning district to RS is appropriate and would allow a previously undeveloped lot within the city to be developed. There would be no direct fiscal impact on the city as a result of this zoning action. And the commission has the following action options. So staff has identified the following options for City Commission's consideration. 1, if the City Commission concurs with the findings and the recommendation of the Planning Commission, Ordinance number 26-11275, rezoning Lot 1, Block 1 of the Mariposa subdivision from PDD R2 to RS should be approved. This action would require 3 affirmative votes. 2, if the City Commission disagrees with the Planning Commission or with the recommendation of the Planning Commission, it may return this item to the Planning Commission together with the reason for its disagreement. 3, the City Commission could postpone consideration of this rezoning application to a future meeting date to allow the applicant or staff to provide additional information. Or 4, the City Commission could overturn the recommendation of the Planning Commission and deny application Z25-6, provided that there are 4 votes in support of denial. The Commission would also need to adopt alternative findings in support of a denial. And staff would recommend option 1. And with that, staff is available for any questions you might have, and the applicant's representative, Dean Andrew, is here as well to possibly answer any other questions you might have.
Commissioner Rimp, you got a question?
What I wanted to say is, for the sake of efficiency, does anybody have I see nothing but positive with this. I live in the neighborhood that is just to the east. The neighbors that back up to this property are, quite frankly, thrilled that a lot, if not most of the trees will be staying, which provides a buffer in their backyard. From a drainage perspective, yeah, it's got to be far greater than townhomes or condos or whatever in there. It's one of the few areas where habitat can still seek refuge in the area. A lot of deer go through that area. I just don't see any downside.
Staff has not seen any either, and I think that's possibly speaks to maybe this being the appropriate way to develop the lot, as seen as 37 years have went by and it hasn't been developed yet for its intended use. And
Little tidbit, I was looking at doing the same thing, but I figured at this point in time, at this stage of the game, it was more than I wanted to take on, and I did see that utilities would be a little bit more of a challenge, but I would have wanted to do the same thing.
It does have some unique topography. There's about a 40-foot elevation difference between Cedar Ridge on the south and the north property line, so that definitely would be something that is a challenge when you're developing more building pads for multifamily. And with the lack of the sewer main in Cedar Ridge, it would probably be a lot easier to connect a single-family home into the existing sewer system. And there's probably some benefits to developing it in the way that the request is, intended.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Any comments from the public? Or Mr. Andrew, do you have anything to add, or?
Well, I was just going to note two things. One, some things never change. My items are always last on the agenda. And secondly, that the Adamses purchased this property not really understanding what the previous planned development district and restrictions were all about. And their realtors referred them to me and said perhaps I could help them understand the rezoning process. So I just assisted them with getting this application set up and filed, and their plan is to simply build a single-family home, take like 1 or 2 acres in the center of the property, clear it of trees, and leave a buffer on the outside. And so they would put up a home in a large outbuilding.
Was there, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Was there something about 2 outbuildings or just 1? Was there?
Well, the primary distinction is if you're in an A1 or RS zone, you can have an outbuilding up to 1,200 square feet in size. So that was appealing to them. On a standard lot, you could have a smaller garage and then an outbuilding, but they think they can get all their square footage needs in a 1,200 square foot outbuilding. So that's their plan, is to have a house and an outbuilding. They perhaps might consider putting in a pool at some point, but that was their primary goal, was to have a single home and a sizable outbuilding.
And that falls within the zoning then?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, that was my question. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
You want to do the honors?
Sure. I'm going to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation, which is ordinance number 26-11275, rezoning Lot 1, Block 5 of the Mariposa subdivision from PDD-R2 multifamily residential to RS residential suburban should be approved, or anyway, that's the motion to approve it.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second concurring with the findings and recommendation of the Planning Commission, ordinance number 26-11275, rezoning Lot 1, Block 5 of the Mariposa subdivision from PDD R2 multifamily residential to RS residential suburban. We will have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ivey?
Aye.
Commissioner Lankowitz?
Aye.
Commissioner Rim?
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick?
Aye. That item passes 5-0. So that will bring us to other business. Is there an item a commissioner would like to bring before the group?
Just spurred my mind thinking, we were talking about the houses. Did we ever change our codes for small houses and tiny homes, the small lot sizes, as far as developing? Because we have a lot of, I've noticed around town, vacant, real small parcels.
Yes, so Commissioner Davis, there's probably a couple things going on there. Some of the smaller vacant parcels you see, one of the challenges, and staff is actually working through this as part of the Live Salina plan, is many of them are what we would call substandard lots now, that they're so small that when you put even a small product on them, they can't meet setback requirements because they're usually substandard lots and they're usually typically older lots. So we're trying to kind of find the right thing to put in there. That's some of the product that the Chodo's looking at developing and adding. Just one-room units are things that we're looking at that might be able to fit on those. But if you, for instance, like during COVID, when we did research about, buying manufactured homes and how quickly could we get housing, even the smallest unit we could get from those companies are still too large for those lots to get setbacks to work. And then often if you're developing them yourself, that's more work than you want to do to try and go get those variances. So we're trying to kind of find a more blanket approach to that, but there's a lot of variables that make that hard. We did, in the latest adoption of the International Building Code and all of its associated pieces, adopt a new code for tiny homes that do make those more possible. So dealing with ladders and stairs and different types of windows and loft space and things like that. So it helps to get to smaller units. But in general, you know, our setbacks are very reasonable, and so there's really nothing preventing you from doing a small or a tiny home on one of our lots. But some of those substandard lots are a little bit of a challenge. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other commissioner?
I was out Sunday morning early, and it was noticeable how well the streets were actually cleared off after the 9 inches of snow we had, so compliments to them.
Yep. True. A lot of individuals working through the night, so very greatly appreciated. I do have two things. The first thing is I noticed that Mr. Bengtson's wife is here, Bobby, and I would like to thank her for sharing her husband with us for 40 years. There was we talked about going through some major things, and I know during Star Bonds and different things that Greg spent a lot of evenings here and was late getting home, and I know a lot of Monday nights you had late supper. So again, thank you very much for sharing. It's always a partnership, so we appreciate that. Thank you. With that, I talked to Jacob about this, that I've always said I'm a cheerleader for the city of Salina, and I've decided that every meeting we're going to talk about something positive at this point in the meeting. And it may be something that's going on with a city department, it may be a business, it may be a nonprofit. But today we get informational sheets, and we have had some work done. In October of 24, the city of Salina entered into an agreement with the Union Pacific Railroad to remove and replace the rail and crossings on 4th Street, extending from Iron Street to Walnut. And that's the area where the garage is and the yard. And that area has seen a lot more traffic because of those two buildings being occupied now. And it was a danger to people trying to walk across there, and it was not good on vehicles. And so we entered into the agreement. The city of Salina paid 65% of the improvements, and the railroad paid 35%. And you can see kind of what it looked like when they were working on it versus the final product. We're very, very happy about it. It's a much easier to navigate that area, safer for those individuals visiting those facilities. So something good that we did in partnership between the city and the Union Pacific Railroad, which is not always easy to do, and took a little bit of work to get the railroad on board. So anyway, that's our positive item for this meeting, and we'll have something for you next. So with that being said, it is time for Citizens Forum. If someone has... Oh, I'm sorry.
For those of us who aren't familiar with our new city attorney,
So we have hired a new city attorney, Patrick Hoffman. He's been got some local government experience, worked in different counties across the state, and he's kind of been intermittent in and out of the office for the last couple of weeks. But he'll start full time at the end of the week, and he'll be in this seat next meeting. So, Patrick, I guess you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Patrick. Looking forward to working with all you guys. I've been able to take a couple of days, and Greg has been great, as has Aaron Martin and everybody on staff, kind of showing me around. And earlier there was a question about the great legal advice Greg gave you, and I agreed. And anytime two attorneys are in agreement, we should celebrate it. So, that's my only comment for tonight.
Thank you and welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, with that, we come to Citizens Forum. This opportunity for individuals to share with us. We ask that you give your name and where you're from, and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Jim Vint, 1115 Andrew Avenue, Salina, Kansas. Quote, "And those who seek to disrupt, round them up and get a positive ID. With that positive ID, cut off any and all government assistance they receive. It's obvious they don't have real jobs." Newsflash, quote, The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Condemnation of political activists is fascism. Fascism is anathema in our community. Let's consider how fascism works, the politics of us and them. Jason Stanley. Page XIII, quote, a distinguishing mark of fascist politics is the targeting of ideological enemies and the freeing of all restraints in combating them, unquote. Page 157, quote, in fascist ideology, the state reserves support for us and not for them. The justification is invariably because they are lazy, lack a work ethic, and cannot be trusted with state funds because they are criminal and seek only to live off state largesse. Quote, as for, quote, round them up and get a positive ID, the city of Salina has an ordinance that is a verbatim transcription of the key elements of Terry v. Ohio, a 1968 U.S. Supreme Court decision regarding what is and is not a reasonable search and seizure. This fact is well known to me because its passage was one of the prerequisites for an out-of-court settlement of a federal lawsuit filed by me against the city under 42 U.S.C. 1983 for illegal stop, search, and seizure. Prior to this action, it was the explicit policy of the Salina cops to stop anyone they didn't like the looks of and demand a positive ID. My lawsuit followed my being stopped while walking down Santa Fe at 2:30 in the afternoon and being told that I needed to show positive ID because, quote, you look like a transient. I knew I was going to disrupt that ultimatum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, commissioners, and staff, good afternoon. My name is Brian Thompson. I've been a resident of Salina for about 45 years. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That was the First Amendment to the Constitution for a reason. The framers saw it as an absolutely essential part of liberty. We have a commissioner who has suggested that people who protest should be treated harshly. And I note that Salina has a general order of the police department, number 02404, covering civil disturbances and civil disobedience. And it reads, civil disturbance, an unlawful assembly that constitutes a breach of the peace or any assembly of persons where there is imminent danger of collective violence, destruction of property, or other unlawful acts. Given that there is a suggestion that protest should be dealt with harshly, I think it's in the city's best interest to act proactively and to put some guardrails on this policy. This policy is pretty vague. What does it mean that there is imminent danger of collective violence? What does it mean that there is a disturbance of the peace, a breach of the peace? Let's have some absolute specific guidelines. Now, I realize that the outrages that we're seeing in Minneapolis and elsewhere are not at the hands of the local police or the local officials. They are inflicted by agents of the federal government. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't happen here or anywhere else. And so I ask you to please put some definition to this guidance, because few things are more American than the right of people to gather together and express themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Gentleman David Norland, 608 East Republic, Salina. In keeping, Michael, with the positive atmosphere you were talking about, I am glad, and Jerry, this does not apply to you. I haven't had that opportunity, but for Greg Lenkowitz, Michael Hoppick, Trent Davis, I've had the opportunity to have respectful conversations. I have generally benefited by those conversations. And it is that kind of atmosphere that I would hope for here, and I think that all of the citizens would. It is out of your will, sitting in a position of privilege, to create the kind of laws or ordinances that Brian's talking about. But it requires that kind of impetus toward justice on your part. By the way, I would suggest you move the comments section to shortly after 5:30 as one of the first gestures of goodwill to the public. So you may have seen around town on billboards and on I-70 the message, real Kansans, real voters, real fed up. A glance at Doug Remp's now infamous posting will tell you what Kansans are fed up with. We're fed up with exactly the attitude contained in his post. It suggests using water cannons and sub-freezing weather on people employing free speech, and the idea of removing any government benefit from them. It also reeks of the attitude that anyone protesting that action is subhuman and deserves only punishment, even if that means starvation and death from lack of health care or other terrible outcomes. Mr. Remp is a person of privilege. In his new role as a city commissioner, he is particularly someone who should be a guard and promoter of everyone's welfare, not an attacker, no matter their status. His inner self is revealed in that note. It maintains that citizens should respect their government no matter its decisions. It implies that the government should only care for those who toe the line and are deserving and loyal. This is unacceptable. It reveals Mr. Remp, in that statement at least, if he is willing to change, as unfit for public service that he has been elected to. So I would ask, although unrealistically, for a statement from the city, at least stating that we stand for these other values. Censuring Mr. Remp, I don't see that's happening, but that it should be. I want to read as briefly as I can, and please don't interrupt. It's short. Amanda Gorman, you remember, who gave the speech to Biden's inauguration, widely known. She wrote a poem on the just murdered person in Minneapolis, Minnesota, who was protesting peacefully. We wake with no words, just woe and wound. Our own country shooting us in the back is not brutality. It's not just brutality, it's jarring betrayal. Not enforcement, but execution. Its message is, love your people and you will die. Yet our greatest threat isn't the outsiders among us, but those among us who never look within. Fear not those without papers, but those without conscience. Know that to care intensively united is to carry both pain-dark horror for today and a profound, daring hope for tomorrow. We can feel we have nothing to give and still beloved this world waiting, trembling to change. If we cannot find words, may we find the will. If we ever lose hope, may we never lose humanity. The only undying thing is mercy, the courage to open ourselves like doors, hug our neighbors, and save one more bright, impossible life.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Anyone else?
Me. The right time now.
Now you can come up. How's that?
I'm getting there.
You want to give us your name again?
Yes. Becky Norland. I live right here in Salina. I just want to say I haven't come to go down here. I think we've all heard some great things tonight. My hope is that I'll reach a little bit of humanity inside of you. Okay? I came today to address the commission regarding, obviously, the comments that were made online. I represent a group called the Committed Kansas Activists. We are peaceful. We show up in our community with signs, music, support, not violence. And yet, While standing for our values, we have been met here in Salina with Nazi salutes, slurs against the LGBTQ community, including the F word, the N word, the R word, and other dehumanizing language. We also show up to support neighboring counties and state, including all the way up to DC, because we believe that community doesn't stop at a county or even state lines or even country lines. In this country, we are seeing a historic civic engagement, some of the largest protests in history, and now one of the longest, or I should say the largest labor strikes in the past 70 to 100 years in Minneapolis. People are speaking up because they really care about one another. This past week, we had Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which was a time when many of us reflected on the lessons he taught about justice and dignity and nonviolence. Dr. King spoke plainly about the tools of oppression, about water cannons, intimidation, and dehumanization, and how those tactics were used to silence people who were peacefully asking to be treated as human beings. Hearing that kind of rhetoric echoed today should concern us all. I also want to name Renee Good and Alex Preddy, who were killed in Minneapolis. Their deaths are a stark reminder that dehumanizing language and rhetoric are not abstract. They have real, devastating consequences. And when people are labeled, mocked, or treated as less than human, it creates the conditions where harm becomes easier to justify. We are grieving them. We hold their families and loved ones in our hearts, and we must be honest about how words and policies and attitudes can escalate into violence. Honoring their lives means recommitting ourselves to dignity, accountability, and the refusal to normalize harm. Language matters. Words shape how we see one another. Dehumanizing language has no place in our community or in this world. And as Mr. Rogers so fondly reminded us, everyone longs to be loved. And the greatest thing that we can do is help someone know they're not alone. Our public leaders should be helping people feel safe, helping us feel seen, represented, not targeted, not dismissed. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time and for listening to me.
Thank you.
Tony Johnson, Salina. I want to echo what Commissioner Ivy said. I stopped by the barn there on Ash Street and told them they did a bang-up job on this snow removal. I was impressed. You gave us pictures there of the railroad tracks there on 4th Street. I was just curious, and I don't know, but I know the railroad sits like right below God in this country, but
actually above.
Yeah,
just real close.
But like the tracks that run, it's on North Street, like between Santa Fe and 9th Street there on the south side. You know, they're just sticking up out of the ground. Looks like they've been abandoned for a long, long time, which prohibits how wide that North Street can be there. I was just wondering if there was any ongoing talks with the railroad to try to get some of those out of the ground. I know there's some down there by North and 5th Street. I don't know, but they're not easy to navigate in a vehicle sometimes. But anyway, also wanted to say there's a difference between standing in the street acting a fool, throwing things and hurling insults, and protesting. So I mean, if you're offended by words, you should have grew up in my generation. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Winhill, Salina. Mr. City Manager, I finally figured out where you were coming up with your figures. 22 million was the DOT. 15 million is from the Corps of Engineers. The 15 million, I take it we don't have that in hand yet, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And there's a reason for that, because I was at the meeting here when the Corps of Engineer representative stood up here and said that, yes, we will give money to the River Renewal Project, but this is not a guarantee. There is no guarantee, and you are going to be paid quarterly, and at any time the government can nix this item off of their what they spend or what they give out. So that grant could go away, period. And it was supposed to be used for dredging the river, removing of existing culverts, and the sediment basin that would be installed at the beginning of it. So when we go back to the $22 million, I also was at the meeting where our city engineer stood up here and said, and when asked, that the 7 bridges and the 7 miles of river trail would be covered by the $22 million. I found that really odd because that is not very much per bridge, and now we're finding out with the cost of the bridge on Magnolia that this isn't going to be true. There will be more money that's going to have to be had down the road as far as grant money and anything else. On another note, I've heard people stand up here just a while ago saying that they are protesting peacefully and they're being called names. There's 2 sides to the story. Our President of the United States that we have right now has been called every name in the book. And what do you expect? This is the world that we've come to as far as the division. And as far as the ICE agents in Minnesota, they're there for one reason only: to remove murderers, rapists, and anybody else that shouldn't be in our country due to the crime that they are inflicting on all of us here in America.
That is not true.
Okay, please hold your comments.
With that, I'll thank you.
Norman Mantle, Salina. There are 2 meetings, Thursday and Friday at South 9th at Hilton, and you ought to attend them. One starts at 11:30. It's about agriculture in Kansas and the U.S., water, food, etc. Agriculture is going backwards. At $5 a bushel for corn, wheat, we cannot do it. There are bankruptcies coming. You talk to your bankers. We can't afford this. We're quitting. $1 million for a combine, it ain't going to work. If you can pay $1,500 for a cell phone, don't be complaining about the price of food. Meat's going to go up to $35 a pound, and that's cheap. We can't produce it. We're quitting. So alternate energy for your city trucks. Other cities are doing it. You can run it on natural gas, hydrogen. Your city buses here are on natural gas. Why not convert them, your big trucks, over to it? It's an environmental issue. Greed is an animal that requires blood to satisfy our hunger. That's economic development. Any of you knew what the rules of law are, rules of engagement are in law enforcement and in the military? Bet you don't. I bet not one of you can answer it. Military guy can. DNA, nuclear. Life is brutal. About the issue of the agents in Minnesota, you got to walk in their shoes. You got to walk in their shoes. You got to look in their eye. When you've been shot at, then you'll understand why they did what they did. So you need to go to them 2 meetings, Thursday and Friday. We're going to tear out. They are tearing out these dams in the United States, federal. They've already torn them out up in Washington, Oregon. We're going to get these here in Kansas. It's a Native American issue. You're talking U.S. federal government now. This is going beyond state and local. Because we're going to tear them dams out. They already have. It's been on the national news. Native Americans.
Hello, my name is Eddie Sherman, and I live here in Salina. So On December 23rd, a few days after I first spoke to you guys about my concerns with the flag surveillance cameras and currently being deployed in Salina, Salina 311 published an article where the chief of police confirmed their use of those cameras and explained some of their policies with those cameras. And that has created more questions in my mind, and I'm hoping that hopefully somebody will be able to answer some of these questions. So, one, how are the audits performed? And what is the methodology that they are using to perform these audits? Because the methods they use will determine whether an audit is actually effective at catching bad actors. Two, why won't the SPD allow the residents of Salina to see the results of the audits or the flag activity logs? Why the lack of transparency? I filed a KORA request last year, and the SPD cited a bill that never became law and the KORA to deny my request. According to at least one lawyer from Kansas, KORA does not prevent the SPD from releasing the results of their audits or the activity logs. They can always redact certain information and release that. However, they haven't been willing to do that. Three, SPD shares data with other police departments nationwide, as per the Salina 311 article. And my question is, does the SPD ask other agencies for their policies or to see their audits? How would the SPD know if other departments are accessing their system without cause? Four, is the SPD aware that FLOC is sharing the data they acquire from us being in business with them? They're sending those data to workers overseas. And with a company whose system has been breached twice using readily available search engines, who knows what kind of access these workers actually have? And I have some questions for you. The commission that has approved those cameras to be deployed in Salina. One, have you seen the flag activity logs or audits of these logs? Is the SPD following their own policies concerning these? Two, do you think Salina residents should have the right to see those activity logs? After all, those are keeping track of or whereabouts throughout Salina. Three, have you looked into the growing evidence showing how easily officers can abuse this system? Four, are you concerned at all that you are doing business with a company whose systems have been breached twice and does not require two-factor identification? Five, are you aware that at least 2 security researchers have published concerning vulnerabilities affecting the flag cameras? So for me, this technology is highly invasive, and I think that if we're going to be deploying these, we should at least ask the residents to make the decision, and it shouldn't be a unilateral decision made by you or the police department. And so I would say that we should shut them down, shut those cameras down until the people are able to decide for themselves whether they want that technology in their city.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I would just like to.
My name is Alex. Give us your name again.
Yeah, my name is Alex Bishel. I live in Salina, Kansas. I just wanted to echo the sentiment that we should let the contract to expire until we have a vote on it. I've seen several articles about police officers using it to stalk their ex-girlfriends, basically. And I've seen videos where white hat hackers have demonstrated how they can get access to the cameras. So I think we need to reevaluate our agreement with this company.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? If not, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. See you in a few weeks.